Oh, yeah. It's time. It's time for very special Dawn's Early Light this morning. I got my good friend, Brad Samuel Fulton, right here. What's up, brother?
Hey, Jackson, how are you?
Good. Let me just see. Here, say something.
Hello there.
Oh, yeah, I got your levels. People can hear you.
Oh, this is exciting.
You're looking quite dapper.
Well, I brought out my old Stetson. I'm ready to go.
And you had to get up. You had to get up extra early for this.
Well, if the option was to not sleep, I would do that.
Well, I think we're live. I hope we're live. It looks like we're live. Everything looks like it's running. Well, we might as well not waste any time and get this going. So let's do first what we're going to do is, if you don't know, Brad, give us a little intro for the peeps that may not, I don't know why that wouldn't, but the peeps that may not know who you are, that are new to my scene, who you are and kind of your history, your playing card history.
Hello, everybody. I've been working in the playing card industry since it began in terms of the custom world with Dan and Dave Buck, who we've been working together since the Bucks, I think, were 18 and I was just a bit older. And I started photographing cardistry with them and then helped them design it. Didn't help them design, but helped them craft a deck called Smoke and Mirrors back in 2006-ish. And
forever ago.
Went on to have my own playing card line with the Buck twins and do one of the first custom decks not done by somebody who was, David Blaine or Dan and Dave, which was Fulton's Clip Joint. We started designing that in 2010, and that's the beginning of it all.
Nice. Now, when did your and I's illustrious friendship begin?
Well, when I was the creative director at Dan and Dave, Dan Buck was desperately wanting to do a deck with you, actually. When the Federal 52 Kickstarter hit, that's all we talked about for a week, was we got to get this guy. And I think you were working in Los Angeles at either a video game company or an advertising company.
Yeah,
correct?
Video game.
And the meeting never happened. We used to walk down Hollywood Boulevard and look at the Kickstarter. I didn't even know what Kickstarter was. And it was, we got to get this guy to do a deck. And, for some reason or another, it fell through.
Yeah.
And then you contacted me maybe 3 years ago, and we would talk on the phone.
Yeah.
I remember the first thing I said to you is, "Aren't you from Texas?" And you said, "Do I not sound Texan enough for you?"
Did I really sound that bad?
No, you didn't sound like a Texan. And I said, "Are you really from Texas?"
Oh.
And then you put on the phony Texan accent and said, "Should I talk like this?"
Should I talk more like this? That didn't even sound Texan.
No, you didn't sound like I expected you to sound.
I can't do it.
You were doing all these amazing live things.
I say y'all for sure.
Yeah, you don't really sound. You don't sound as West Texas as some people. But then again, a lot of Texas accents are just kind of what we see from movies.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about what we're doing.
Yes, sir.
We've done this. The funny thing is we've done this session before once, and I just didn't save or something, and I lost the back design. And so we're doing it again. Tell us a little bit about the back design that I have up on the screen right now. And you may not. I asked Bill, and Bill Kalush said he didn't know what this back design was.
Wait,
so
Bill Kalush didn't know the
no,
name of it?
he didn't know. So that's good.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good sign. Yeah, I've always loved this back design. I love anything angular. And, the old slang term people like my grandpa would use for Los Angeles was city of the angles, meaning it was a grifting town. It was kind of a shady town, a corrupt town back in its day. We know Hollywood isn't corrupt now, but I've always loved this back design, and I've always stared at the composition and thought it was one of the greatest juxtapositions of angular design, like the forehead of an owl. If you look at it down,
Yep.
with these, concentric rings that almost appear to be foreboding.
Yep.
Almost like it reminds me of like a pagan ritual, kind of a Samhain Gaelic.
Almost.
I don't know why, but I get that feeling.
It definitely has kind of a runic look to it, the way that the lines are kind of intertwined and stuff.
That's a great word.
Yeah, and just visually, the just the X. I remember learning
Yeah.
about that in art history. X is one of the most visually powerful images, and it's used throughout our history, even just like through like I remember seeing examples of the X compositionally, even like with like Egyptian sculptures, even like the Stele of Hammurabi, which is one of like the oldest, like one of the oldest sculptures from like Mesopotamia, and they have like parts of it have X in the composition, so it's very very impactful. And then the triangle
It
too.
really is.
That's one thing I think about this design that's pretty cool. And I say that sounds so lame. I think that's pretty cool, bro. I
It
think
is,
that
bro.
I think one thing that's really successful about this design is it not only has triangles, which are very visually impactful. The triangles then make the X's, and then on top of that, they just go ahead and sprinkle on some intertwining, interlacing circles just for good measure. If you didn't think that they were already making a sweet design, anyways.
It's very true. When I look at it, though, it's funny. It's like an optical illusion. I
Yeah.
can only see the top triangle going down,
Mm-hmm.
like a Siamese cat's head.
Yeah.
But I have to focus hard to see the triangle going up. It almost looks like a one-way back when you see it one way, and then you have
Right.
to force yourself, almost like the illusion of the woman at the vanity with the skull in the background.
Yeah.
You have to almost force yourself to see it as a two-way.
And I think it's interesting that just even some of the elements. And for people that don't know, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be taking this kind of structure of this design, of this back design, and then we're going to be creating a new clip joint back design based on this back. But then we're going to incorporate some of the new kind of iconic clip joint iconography, like the great horned owl, the skull, and we're going to use some death's head moths. It's going to be great. But what I was saying was, even in this design, I think it's interesting how, like with this stuff right here, they've like have these simplified like flowers, and then like these simplified like leaves of the flowers here, and these leaves and these flowers here, and that's just exciting to me because I can already tell that when I go back and design these elements for what we're doing today, like I'm gonna have a chance to make like my own kind of stylistic simplified flower and flower leaf and that kind of thing. So I'm pretty stoked about it. Just like the supplemental elements that are in this design that are interesting for me.
Well, when I look at it, I always wonder what the theme was of this deck. Like, what are the little dingbats? What are they? Are they
Mm-hmm.
leaves? What are the kind of sharp angles around the border? And then
Right.
in the middle, is it like it looks almost like an Orthodox cross or something,
Yeah.
in the middle. It's
Mm-hmm.
very interesting. I wish we could interview Dougherty right now
Yeah.
and
Let's
ask
get
him
it.
what he
Let's
thinks.
let's send him the Zoom link and see if we can get him on.
Do you think we could?
Nah, I'm guessing probably not.
I heard that Dougherty was living in Hollywood and then he moved to Texas and lost power, so I don't think he'll get the link.
Yeah, he probably won't get the link. He may be trying to. He's just maybe boiling old snow.
I think he is. That's what I've heard from his son.
So I have some other images up, and when Brad and started talking to me about this back design, uh, he threw a few different elements at me. First of all, we got the great horned owl that we're going to try to incorporate. Tell us a little bit about the background of the owl and yourself, Brad.
Okay. Yeah. Well, growing up, my grandmother always had owl decorations. She was, from the Depression era, and she loved the owl decorations. And we had all these beautiful owls. And then growing up, kids would say to me at school, "Hey, Brad, if you were an animal, you would look like this." And they would show me the great horned owl encyclopedia. Yeah, they would always say, "Doesn't that look like Brad just staring at you?" It happened over and over and over again, and I always got a kick out of it. And of course, I always loved owls. I mean, who doesn't? Especially in the magic world, you
Yeah.
have just this iconography of wisdom
Yep.
and sleuth behavior, not sloth behavior, but sleuth
Right.
behavior.
Right.
And it was like I just thought when I designed the original clip joint, I thought it was an amazing symbol of, just the night owl. I even designed this 50s kind of coffee shop called the Night Owl. That was one of the beginning, I did like the typography for the night owl, like
Yeah.
an old neon googie sign.
Mm-hmm.
I have a drawing somewhere of the night owl, and I just loved the iconography of it. And then Dan Phillips, who I worked with on the original one. Let me read to you now. I actually took this out. This is an email from 2010 because Dan Phillips thought about this. Because we were using the iconography of the owl and the moth.
Mm-hmm.
He said the idea I was working with was that some moths have huge eye patterns on their wings as defense mechanisms, and owls use their amazing eyes for hunting, aka offense. Therefore, tying the owl's eyes in with the moth's patterning, it echoes the dual nature of gambling, cards in this case. You have to play defensively and offensively simultaneously. Therefore, they are one single entity of the design. There are also wings and talons in there for the owl as well, and the curls of the center define the antenna of the moth. He's talking about the original background
Yeah.
for clip joint. So I
That's
always loved the idea of offense and defense. I had never thought about that.
that's first of all, that's crazy that he thought, like, I would have never thought that, like,
I know.
that deep into that kind of stuff.
I know. He would do that. He would sit there and he would get a random email. It was always at like 3 a.m, and it would be some kind of long. He would never talk about the design elements in terms of real things, but it had to be symbolic for him to be inspired to do anything.
Yeah. As we look at this, and you were talking about, just the triangles and the X's, I'm already excited about incorporating this owl head, because if you look at this owl head, let me see here, let me turn this on right here. If you look at this owl head, just the visual elements that, you got this triangle here.
Yes.
You kind of have another triangle here. Then you're going to be able to have like these sweeping motions here with the eyebrows. And then look at this. You even have like a heart shape right here.
Well, yeah, look at it. Look at the triangle, and then you have the circular element, the ring element being the eyes. I mean, the background of the Dougherty deck is almost an owl now that you bring it up.
Yep. But we're going to be able to use all of that, and it's going to be really interesting. Okay,
well,
and then
because you're unlimited.
well,
you're unlimited.
The great thing is I work on a computer, and so there's no waste of paper, and we can just make as many ideas as we want until we get it right. And we just got to remember to Control S to save it.
Yeah, for everyone that's listening here, Jackson and I did this back design, and we worked on Zoom for a couple hours, and I couldn't believe how great it was coming along. And then, the next day Jackson says, "Man, am I pumped? Oh wait, hey, let me tell you this. I lost the file, but it's okay. I'll just do it again."
Yeah, and the funny thing is I don't even remember what it looked like.
I do remember what it looked like, and I remember that at one point you erased the entire back of the deck and started over, which I've never seen an illustrator. I've worked with a million illustrators in 15 years, and they would always, poop their pants when they would delete something off of it and then have to do it again, and then you just wipe the whole back off.
Yeah. So we got the owl, and then we got the moth, the death's head moth, which is super cool. And
I wanted to kind of step it up. The original clip joint was kind of just based on, the generic kind of moth that we see. But I always had loved my mother. She took me to go see Silence of the Lambs when I was like 9 years old in the theaters, because I'd seen the commercial and wanted to see it. So
Clarice,
the Death's Head moth, always had a great impact on me as the design, as well as if anybody knows Un Chien Andalou, the Luis Buñuel and Salvador Dali film from 1929. There's the iconography of the Death's Head moth against the wall.
Is that the one where they cut into it like a cow's eye or something?
Yes.
Like a razor. I remember seeing that in film school when I was in college.
And then they have the mule, I think, in the piano.
Mm-hmm. Yes. What a weird movie.
Well, Luis Buñuel, who I think would just have been celebrating his birthday. His birthday's right by yours. His son was one of my closest friends, Juan Luis, as well as his other son, Rafael. And Juan Luis actually did the art for the Buck twins book, If an Octopus Could Palm. And so that was their father's movie. Movie had the Death's Head moth. I think he used the Black Witch moth because he was living in Spain or Mexico at the time. But it just kind of full circle with me. I don't know. I've always loved the Buñuels, and I love the Death's Head moth. Who doesn't?
Yeah. That's awesome. So as we start into this, I mean, just my ideas here. Let me just turn on my symmetry here so I got that going. I'm going to bring this opacity down. So what I'm thinking about this is get a less obtrusive color here. So what we're going to probably do is, I mean, I can already see like an owl beak right in here somewhere. And then we'll probably do something where the owl's head is here, eyes, there's his head. And then somehow, what I want to try to do is somehow in this area here, and what I'm thinking is, if I look at this picture of the moth, what I'm thinking, I don't know if it'll work, but if you see this shape right here, let me just do it with the, not a black so people can see it. If you see this shape right here, it kind of creates, with the nose of the skeleton, of the skull in the, well, I actually like this one better. I think this one's more interesting. But if you see the angle of these two eyes right here, they already kind of, and then the nose of the skull, it already creates this kind of triangle. And I think that that will translate easy into being the beak. And so what that means is, let's just go ahead and get these images over here. Let me just erase this stuff.
It's amazing when you break things down to shapes. I know Frank Lloyd Wright used to play with these Freuble, these wooden blocks to get the idea of shapes. You know, a rectangle, a sphere, you know, a square is the, you know, the fundamental building blocks of everything, and then that's how you're breaking down card design. It's just by fundamental shapes.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's really, for sure, that's huge. So what I'm thinking is we're going to have the moth in here somewhere like this. But what I want to make sure is I don't want his tail, and something you and I talked about before, when I'm placing these things, I'm thinking about three different things, which when Brad was telling me kind of the concept of this, he was like, all right, listen. I want to put I want to put an owl head in there. I was like, sweet, we can do that. Then he was like, and then I want to put a death's head moth in there as well. And I was like, sweet, totally can do that. And then he was like, and then I want to somehow hide a larger skull, kind of subliminal skull, in there as well, kind of a trompe-l'oeil skull in the, you know, over in the overall background. Because I mean, if you look at this, I mean, it's not that far-fetched to look at this to where, you know, you've got a skull in there already, in a way. I don't know. Have you ever seen that? I want to say it was I can't remember, but at the 52 Plus Joker convention this year, somebody did a presentation on an old Russell, I think it was a Russell and Morgan deck, and the Joker, or the Ace of Spades, had like George Washington and Martha Washington on it. Let me see if I can find a picture. And then within it was hidden a skull.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's amazing. And like, it's kind of one of those things. Let me see. George and Washington. George and Martha Washington. Joker playing card. Let me see. I want to show it to you because it's pretty. Here it is, right here. Yeah, bro. It's really amazing. This is gonna blow your mind. It's a Samuel. It's a steamboat deck.
Ooh.
All right, watch this. I'm about to blow your mind, Bradley.
Well, it's called the Fulton steam engine there.
So this is the deck right here. But what I want to show you is, look at this. Oh, turn the symmetry off. Look at that. Can you see that?
Okay. Oh, hey, look at that. It's a spade for the nose.
Yeah. And he did a whole presentation about how this, well, it was a part of the presentation of just how that it was a skull. And there's another version that's illuminated that has like gold paint on it that's even more kind of blatant as it's
But
that.
do you believe it was intentional?
Absolutely, for sure. No doubt about it.
It's fascinating. I wonder what it means, though.
I don't know. I don't know.
Was he not a Washington fan?
I don't know. All right, so what I'm going to do is...
Isn't it his birthday today?
Who? Washington? Yeah, he's always like a day before my birthday. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is put this moth in here, and I'm going to try to put the little skeleton that's on the back of his head, I'm going to try to put that right where that little triangle is. But I'm also thinking about two other things. What I'm thinking about is if we end up, when we end up putting some type of skull in here in the background, I want to think about, do you see this like black section of his back? I'm going to try to make that to where that's his nose of the skull. Because I'm not going to be able to draw a skull, but I'm only going to be able to use like shapes and blocks of either color, because this will be a monochromatic color, monochromatic back, and I'll just be able to.
The Salvador Dali photo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do
you have that available to show?
I don't have that one. Available.
Salvador Dali did, for everybody listening, there was a famous photo that Dali did where he had women crouched in different positions to form a skull.
You know what? Let me see.
Halsman, the photographer, took the photo, and I've always loved, that. It's almost a play on the vanity, the woman looking at the vanity that becomes a skull. I've always loved skull optical illusions.
Let me just see here. Let me just try to find one. If YouTube doesn't...
Yeah, it's like a keyhole.
No, I found it. I just got to make sure I find one that doesn't ding me for like copyright or whatever. Here it is, right here. Sorry for the nudity, but here's the skull right here. And there's Dolly right there. I love how he used the feet. I like how he used the feet as the teeth. That's interesting to me. All right. Okay. So, can you see my screen, Brad?
Yes, now I can see it.
Are you watching the YouTube or are you watching me live?
I'm watching the YouTube.
All right. So what I'm going to do, just so that you're a little bit more, so as our conversation happens, you're a little bit more on speed. I'm going to share my screen because Brad and I've never really done this where I'm chatting live with somebody. I'm going to share my screen in our Zoom call, Brad, so you can watch me live. So as we're talking, it can be a little bit more real time for you.
Fantastic.
All right, I think.
Oh, amazing.
Let's see here. All right, so it looks like. Okay. I think we're okay. I may have lost your picture, but we still hear you.
That's great.
Okay, so now as we're talking, you can see it, and you're not going to be like 15 seconds behind. All right, so what I'm thinking about is if I end up putting a skull in here, that I'm going to try to make this part of the back of the moth the nose, and then we're going to have the owl's head here, because these little things already make a perfect like ear.
They do.
Yeah, they do. I mean, it's just like, let's do it. I mean, let's just put it there. So, and then we'll have the beak where that original triangle is, and then we'll try to create, and this will come down like this.
Oh, so cool. Isn't that amazing how just two lines can make a form come to life?
Mm-hmm. And then we'll have other elements in here, just some ghibli bits, the technical term for them, the ghibli bits, to make these.
That is the technical term.
To make these elements. Now, what we'll do is, what I think we'll do is, I'll try to incorporate. Let me turn my symmetry back on.
Is it difficult for you drawing with symmetry? Is it kind of like a mind confusion?
No, with symmetry on, I think it's way easier.
But when you first started, was it hard to kind of wonder what's coming up on the other side?
A little bit, and I can even do more than that. It's actually pretty amazing. It's a pretty amazing tool. I can do these mandalas. Let me see. I can turn on the number of segments. Like I can do 5 segments, and then watch this. Well, I can put it somewhere like this, and then look what it does.
Wow.
I can just create all these weird intricate designs that I wouldn't have either other way. All right, so what I'm thinking is we're gonna have the moth's wings here, and there'll be kind of graphic elements, and then in the patterns, in like the patterns of the wings, is like how we will create kind of the trompe l'oeil effect of the skull eyes, and then these lines here,
Holy moly,
these vertical lines of these circles, is how we'll create the teeth of the skull, kind of like. And then if we can, we may underneath the moth wings. I don't think we'll do this because there's going to be so much going on in the middle. I was going to say we maybe try to do just a hint at the owl wings behind it.
I don't even know if it needs it.
All
We'll
right.
see.
All right. Because the reason why I was thinking about not doing that was because I wanted to do, my own little cool little leaves and stuff here to pay kind of.
If anyone's seen your work, especially Federal 52s, you know that we want Jackson dingbats and leaves.
Yes. We have to have dingbats. We have to have dingbat. All right, so let's take this. Let me see here. I'm gonna take this.
For anyone else listening out there, I always loved also the background of this because it reminded me of one of my favorite elements of film noir, which Clipjoint is heavily inspired by, which is the blinds. If you ever look at Double Indemnity,
these old things here
coming into the office, and just the light through blinds is a real element for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this and just throw it around just so we've got it. Because I always like just seeing what happens already when you're multiplying it around. Yeah, I mean, it's already looking pretty sweet.
I know. Thank God you lost that old file.
Good. That thing sucked. I'm so glad we lost it. Because look at this. We've got our two circles.
That is way better than I thought.
We got our 2 circles already here. And then we're going to have this circle already. Oh, bro, this is going to be easy. I mean,
Jackson Robinson is easy.
I mean, we basically have it figured out already, and we just piddled with it for about 10 minutes.
You know what's funny, though, is I think a lot of this is like background brain processing. We've talked so much about it. There's some kind of like psychic element where it just builds itself in your sleep.
Yep. So, okay. I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to make this white. Let me see here. I'm going to make this drawing white because I want to work on it as a white drawing on black because that's kind of the way it's going to be.
Right.
So I'm going to make this white, and then I'm going to fill the background with black. Okay. Let me take the moth. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be...
What's the old quote?
It's going to be sick.
I'll stop wearing black when they invent a darker color.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so we're going to bring the drawing down now. I kind of got it in my head. My photographic memory here, snapshot. I'm just looking at it. Just looking at it here. Okay, so let's bring the moth back. Let's get the owl in here. Get out of here, red lines.
That's a beautiful owl.
It is.
Mark the face.
Yeah. I want to bring, and for everybody that's listening, I always say this. I always make sure and purchase all this artwork, all these photographs.
That's great. I wonder how many people do.
I don't know. I didn't for a long time, and then I became an artist.
That's right. I know how it works.
All right. Let's go take this.
Wouldn't that be an amazing creature to see in the wild?
Oh, I forgot to tell you. I wanted to tell you this earlier. So when we lived in Austin, out in the country, we had we had a great horned owl that lived on our property.
Oh, really?
Hmm. And every night, and he or she would hang out by our bedroom, and so we could listen outside, and you would just hear it going whoo whoo. And the crazy thing about it is, I don't know if you knew this, but uh, because, and just going back to what you were saying about the predatory nature of owls, the way that they've evolved in their wings and their feather structure, they make no noise when they fly.
Yes.
And I remember we would hear him hoot, and then he'd fly somewhere. We'd see him, and we would see like this, just like this kind of blur of light, because he'd hit the light of like our kind of like our backyard floodlight. But then we wouldn't hear anything, and it was so amazing.
Have you ever seen the study of owls hunting where they have the barn and it's like they set it up for photography and the barn is completely like soundproof and they have the owl up in the rafters and then they let some mice go and they have it all mic'd for sound and then you just watch this owl come down and grab these mice and they have no idea what's coming behind
Jeez,
them.
and you all you hear is the mice squealing.
Yes, yeah, it's absolutely it's beautiful and terrifying.
Oh
You
yeah.
think if like an alien snatched you out of your house right now,
Oh
it's almost
man.
like that.
All right. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna draw in white, just another like, and the people that have watched me do these, I always do a rough sketch like this, and then I'll just do once I kind of find something I like, I do another sketch over the top of it, a little bit more refined. And so I'll just kind of sketch my ideas here.
But how has your process changed since Federal 52s?
Um, Probably. Well, I've gotten a lot more efficient um, at just the creation process since then, and being more efficient allows me to make get to a point with my ideas that are kind of a final a final a final more quick. I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure.
There's a story that I read about this engineer guy, and there was this big factory plant, and this guy, I can't remember if in the story if this guy had designed the plant or designed the machinery in the plant, but the plant, something was happening and the plant wasn't working, and the plant was down, and it was a thing where they were like losing hundreds of thousands of dollars every day as because the plant being down. And uh, so they call this guy in to figure out what's wrong, with the machines. And he comes in, he hits some pipes with a hammer, he looks around, he does some walks around the plant, does some thinking, and then he gets out a piece of chalk and he puts an X on like an elbow of a pipe or something. And and then he was like, "Here's your problem right here," and then he leaves. And then a couple of days later, he sends them an invoice, okay? And the invoice is, $10,000. And then the company is like, 10,000. Could you itemize that for us, please? And then he sends them back the invoice for the itemized thing, and it says 999. He says, $1 the piece of chalk, and then $9,999 knowing where to mark the chalk, like knowing where to put the X. And I know that was a long answer to your question. Like,
I love it.
From when I started the Federal 52 and this, and now, it's really a thing of where just the amount of hours and practice that I've been able to put in, I feel like that I know where to put the X faster. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's a great story. That's a great story. Have you ever heard the story of Pablo Picasso when he was hired by I think it was Maytag to consult on refrigerators?
No.
in marketing school, we we learned this where I think it was, I believe it was Maytag or Whirlpool, but they wanted to kind of capture that 50s, optimism of consumerism. And so they
Uh-huh.
wanted to redesign the fridge. And so they asked Picasso if he would consult to make a beautiful fridge. And he said, sure. And they paid him some crazy amount at the time. I don't know. Maybe this was the 60s or maybe it's toward the 70s, but it's thousands of dollars. And he came back a month later and he said, I don't know what the fridge should look like, but I would probably make it white. That was it.
That was all he did.
Yeah, he said it should be probably white.
That's funny.
You need a consulting job like that. Maybe I'll try to hook you up with like Kingsford Charcoal or something, and you can give them advice like that and cash a check.
I think the charcoal should be black.
Yeah, I think charcoal should be black and maybe in an elemental shape.
Yes, maybe kind of a brick form. Maybe like a little.
Have you been barbecuing out in Tennessee at all?
Oh yeah, I got a new smoker, bro. I got one of those Traeger smokers. It's amazing. This is looking pretty sweet, by the way. I don't know if you're noticing.
It's crazy. I'm just in awe. For everybody listening out there, I don't think you understand how abnormal it is to design a deck like this. Not meaning live. I mean, just with Jackson. I've worked with a lot of artists, great ones, and the process is always different for everybody. But with the original deck, it was just a lot of talking with Dan Phillips, and then you'd get some rough sketches, and you'd be nervous. I mean, when Dan Phillips would give you a sketch, you'd be nervous. You'd be like, man, can he do it?
Yeah.
And then it'd be real rough, and you would have to really have faith. It was like jumping off a cliff because you know how genius Dan Phillips is. You know that he can do it. And then you'd come back with something, some very abstract emails, and then a lot of waiting, and then you'd get something, and you'd be like, how the hell did you do that? And it took so long. It took, half a year, and it was just so much talking in this. And I think people don't understand that your ability to not be afraid of failing is amazing.
Yeah.
You just go for it.
Got to be able to fail a lot.
I'm not like that. I'm more like Dan Phillips. I think Dan and I are way more similar. And we envy. I was talking to Dan Phillips all day yesterday about you and your work. And Dan Phillips became hooked on Don's Early Light. He was going through, watching them all, and he was just in disbelief. It's not a normal process. People in the card industry being able to see this, not because of me saying that, because you get to see me, but to watch someone like Jackson draw a card deck. It's like when I was going to film school, I used to just watch all of those. I used to listen to all the Laserdisc commentaries. I would try to find any Scorsese or John Carpenter.
Yeah.
You could listen to Scorsese talk about making Raging Bull.
Wow.
And I became addicted to listening to the audio commentaries. And it's like, can you imagine if back in the days, like when I was in school, you could have watched Scorsese block a scene for Taxi Driver 2
Wow.
with De Niro? It would have been valuable.
That would be awesome. Anybody
out there wanting to design a deck, getting to watch this, it's better than college. Send Jackson some tuition money.
Yeah, that's that consulting job we were going to try to get me to get, right?
This is it. We need to Jackson you.
Jackson you.
Please.
I could do those master classes.
You know what? That's a great idea. You should. I know Aaron Franklin, the barbecue genius. He did a master class on brisket.
Yeah, man.
It's amazing what you can learn now.
I mean, you can basically learn anything that you want on the interwebs.
Absolutely.
With a little time and patience.
I was telling my daughter because I was talking to an artist I'm friends with, Crayola, Greg Simpkins. And I was talking to Greg, and I said, I was showing my daughter some videos of Greg painting. I don't know if anyone knows the artist Crayola. He's an amazing ex-graffiti artist from LA, and he does these massive, detailed paintings. And I was showing my daughter, he did a Garbage Pail Kid recently. And I said to her, do you know how lucky you are? Back in the old days, you would have had to find someone like this, then befriend them, then talk your way into the studio.
Yeah, just to even see it.
Now you can go on YouTube for free, and you can learn how to paint from Greg Simpkins. I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah.
Jeez, that looks amazing. I can already tell that there's going to be some typical Jackson genius.
Oh, they're coming. The dingbats are coming, man.
That's like the Jerry's Nugget you did for Kalush.
Mm-hmm.
I've said it on my lives a million times. The dingbat elements are so bizarre that you added on that, and that's what makes the deck.
These blind stuff in there. I like that you call those blinds.
Well, it gives it kind of an atmosphere that might be light peering into the clip joint is the hours come. For all of you that don't know clip joint, I mean, it was set as kind of a backdoor gambling room, possibly a little whiskey going on, or maybe it was a steakhouse in front and you had that in the background, but it was in downtown LA from 1946. Like the places I used to love to go, like Cole's, you know,
Yeah.
and Philippe Sandwich, just old LA that was amazing.
Yeah.
That's sadly going away. You have Taylor's Steakhouse in Koreatown, and these places. That's what Clip Joint was supposed to be. It was a fictional place in 1946 that someone like my grandpa. Well, it's funny. I always say my grandpa would have liked to go there, but my grandpa gave me the advice when I was young that never walk into a bar, never go into a bar.
Okay.
And I said, "Why, Papa?" We'd go on these long walks, and he'd say, "Because of all those damn lushes in there, and they don't wash glasses in bars." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "You think a bartender cares about these alkies? They don't even clean the glasses. They just serve it up to the next lush at the counter." And I said, "Really?" And so I always had that idea. And then he used to tell me, "Someone like you will end up dead in a bar. You'll fight some guy in there, because I have a quick temper." And he'd say,
Yeah.
"Stay away from bars." I did. I did.
So this second, now the drawing I'm doing is a little more detailed now. So we're kind of honing in on some of the shapes, the granular shapes.
When Dan, Dave, and I would first start talking to artists about how to design a deck of playing cards, it was, they always had never thought about designing it. And so I remember Dan and Dave made this PDF on how to design playing cards, and they should publish it. Actually, it's amazing. It's like 12 years old, maybe. No, maybe 10 years old. And it basically broke it down to where if you're designing a playing card, you can look at it a few ways. If you're not doing a one-way back, the deck is mirrored in half, or it's quartered. You can look at it as a quarter and then just kind of unfold, that quarter 4 ways.
Yeah.
It's interesting to get your head around what a playing card back is.
Oh, look at this. I didn't even know this until right now. Look at this, Brad.
Whoa.
Look how the antennas make the eyebrows of the owl.
Hey, I didn't see that.
I just now saw it. You see the antennas right here? Like they're there. They're there for the eyebrows.
That is so crazy. And the eyebrows are one of the most defining factors of the owl when you look at their face. Whoa. Or for anybody that's from Austin, they can just say it's a longhorn.
Yeah.
Look at that shape.
Yeah.
We should just do it that burnt orange color.
Ugh.
What a bizarre color of orange, right?
It is. Color. It's so hard to like. Yeah, I agree. It's very.
I'm a big fan of orange, the color. But when I look at that color, I always ponder it too much. I remember Crayolas as a kid, and remember the color burnt sienna.
Yep.
I used to sit in my class as a kid and say, "What the heck does burnt sienna mean?"
I love burnt sienna.
Yeah, the name though as a kid. And remember when I was a kid, the kind of pink color was called flesh.
Oh yeah, flesh. I remember that.
Flesh.
That's awful.
Well, what other names of periwinkle was another one?
Cornflower blue.
That's right. Carnation pink.
I need to. Yeah, this is a.
Were you a big drawer, like even in grade school?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Do you have any of your art from when you were a child?
Actually, I do. My mom came and visited.
Hey, look at that. That's like the Freemason symbol too. Like that was another element in clip joint.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Go on. I'm sorry.
No, she visited a few last year sometime, and she brought some of my old art.
Do you see a similar style, or do you look at it and say you don't recognize it?
No, I do see a similar style, especially like there's this picture of like a chuck wagon that I drew, and it's literally just all line work. And so like, yep, that's me early.
I was a kid, when we moved to Phoenix, Arizona, there was a restaurant called the Big Apple, Bill Johnson's Big Apple, and it was like a, sawdust on the floor, real old west kind of burger joint.
Yeah.
And they used to have this amazing chuck wagon and like Oregon Trail type of like
Mm-hmm.
a train that would go around inside,
That's awesome.
like the covered wagons. And they all went out of business, and now they're like parking lots, I think, for a community college. And someone had on eBay the original like covered wagon from the Big Apple.
Oh man,
And
that
like,
sounds awesome.
dude, it's awesome. I just sat and looked at the auction, like, I love the Big Apple, and just, your childhood is so special, and you look at those. Like, as a child, I used to watch that thing go around.
Jeez, it's crazy
Actually,
that.
What's that?
It's just crazy that you were able to find that.
Oh yeah, I follow the auctions for the Big Apple, and I just think that's great. And my friend's grandma worked there, and I talk to my friends still, and I always say, man, your grandma was just a rock star. I used to be envious that your grandma was a waitress at the Big Apple. Yeah, old Arizona had like a real cool aesthetic. Like, I think a lot of it's gone, but it had like, Arizona was kind of an extension of Texas and California at the same time. It was like the real old west, like Billy the Kid in New Mexico.
Yeah.
But then it was also kind of like the white man's interpretation of native art. So
Right,
you get a
right.
kitschy style of like the Pima Indians.
Yeah.
And they would have like a lot of just that real edgy, like not edgy in terms of controversial, but edgy as an angular design, like the Pima blankets that were reconstituted in bars and stuff. Just a beautiful aesthetic.
So just letting you know, I saved.
Oh, that's good. Well, at least it's live. We could just have someone else out there send us a copy of the video.
Because I have a feeling this is going to be way better than the one we did earlier. Just see how I'm going to do this. So.
The hardest part of this, though, is that it almost now is forming a snout, though.
Oh, this?
So we're losing the angularness of the beak, and it's becoming almost like a snout. That's the difficult design element of this now. That's a challenge.
Maybe a little bit. Let's see here. I want to bring this down just a little bit.
Just look at that.
But I think some of the, not the snout comment, but I think some of the ambiguity of it is interesting.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Just see.
Just look at it. When did you first start using, Photoshop and Illustrator?
When I was in junior high, I was in art, and there was one computer in the art room, and they had Corel Painter.
Oh, I remember that.
And the teacher just let me mess with Corel Painter all day.
Oh, I love that. You know what's funny is, Steve Jobs was a big fan of Andy Warhol. He flew to New York to gift him, the first Mac, the 84 Mac, and he went to this birthday party for John Lennon's son.
Okay.
John Lennon was throwing, and Steve Jobs hung around to meet Warhol and give him a Macintosh.
Huh.
And Andy Warhol's nephew, Donald, is one of my closest friends. And Donald is an IT guy, and his uncle Andy actually hired him to do IT work for Warhol's studio when he was like in college. And I said, hey, did Andy love Corel Paint and Mac Paint and stuff? And he said, no way. He loved Amiga. Apple just ripped off Amiga. And he was showing me these old Amiga art programs, and they were basically what became Mac Paint and Corel. I mean, we forget about Amiga.
I've never even heard of Amiga.
Oh, really? I remember it briefly as a kid, but we just knew Corel and we knew Mac Paint. But look at the Amiga, and that's what Andy used.
Yeah.
Mostly. He did have an Apple, but he used these old Amigas and stuff. It's fascinating to look at old technology and where it went.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I think people out there that are watching that weren't in the playing card industry, like weren't buying playing cards. Maybe they were younger, maybe they didn't know about it. But 8 years ago, didn't Federal 52s come out 8 years ago, maybe?
2013. So like 7, 8 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, 7 years ago. When people now, I think, have become numb to it because it's kind of an iconic deck. But when you saw it for the first time, I'll never forget walking down Hollywood Boulevard, and Dan Buck showed me on like the one of those old phones, and he said, "Look at this on Kickstarter." And I said, "Dan, what's a Kickstarter?" And he said, "It's a place where you can fundraise. Look at how much money this guy's getting in. It's unbelievable. Look at this deck. It looks like money. This guy can draw currency." And we sat there and looked at it, and I said, "Is that a drawing, or is that a copy of like money?" Because I didn't understand like the engraving or that style could be done nowadays. We think that that's only something in the past.
Right. That feels like
And whatever happened? Did you ever have a meeting with Dan about doing a deck?
We've had a few conversations. It's just kind of one of those things of like, I'm just too busy doing my own stuff.
I mean, back then, though. I mean, what was the conversation?
Well, I remember. I could probably pull the email up. Let me see. And one of them. Let me see. One of them emails me.
One of them. You got a 50% chance of being right.
Yeah, exactly. Let me just see here.
That is so funny.
They emailed me in 2013. They were just like, "Hey, my name's Dan or Dave Buck, and we own this company, Dan and Dave, and they just wanted to talk to me on the phone." And I remember calling them. How do I use this computer thing? How do I sort by date?
So interesting for anyone interested in playing card history.
I want to sort. How do I sort? This is interesting. Here's 3/21/2013.
Yep, I remember this.
Let's see here. Let me see. Hello, Jackson. My name is Dan Buck. I own a lifestyle brand for magicians with my twin brother, Dave. We print hundreds of thousands of playing cards every year. Check us out.
True.
Huh? Yeah.
That was true.
To get to the point, I think your style would be perfect for a new deck we had in mind. Since we both live in L.A., and this is when I lived in L.A. at the time, we should meet up for coffee and discuss a possible collaboration. This was March 21st. 21st.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Isn't that cool?
That is awesome. I was there when Dan must have emailed you that day because, that was just the talk of the town. And I forget the idea. I think something was with a robot.
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember either.
It was just the talk of the town. It never happened. It would have been cool if that happened, though.
It may still. But
I hope. It's freaking awesome. Yeah, I remember, it's just become like when you tell somebody you design playing cards, they say, "You mean bicycles?"
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like kind of like that with currency. We don't believe that there was a designer.
Oh yeah. Even the most recent one, like the last one they redesigned was the 100. Even that was the last. It was the last. It was the last one that they did traditionally, and they won't do any more traditionally anymore. Yeah. And
do you know who the designer was?
Yeah, I remember. You can go on YouTube or something, and I watched a whole little kind of short documentary about that guy who did the Franklin, because he did the Franklin for the kind of early 2000s redesign of the 100, and then the newer one he had to create the entire image, because he kind of breaks out of that. Ben Franklin kind of breaks out of that little kind of oval shape on the new 100.
That's right.
And he kind of had to take the original one that he did and draw the rest of him, kind of a thing.
I wonder if he'll ever ask you to draw one.
I think that would be awesome, but I don't know. It's kind of one of those things of it's kind of one of those things of even like with the postal service, like you got to know the right person.
Yes.
You got to, and even a lot of that stuff is like you got to be an apprentice for a while in the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. But I think anything is possible and everything is changing.
Were you a big fan of Mr. Rogers?
Yeah,
So I'm an obsessive Rogers fan, and I still watch the episodes with my children now. And they have an episode on how a stamp is drawn. And
yeah.
they have this guy who's amazing. He's this black gentleman who grew up, I think, in D.C. and he got a job there as like an apprentice when he was in his 20s, and he was the designer of stamps. And Rogers sits with him and shows him drawing a freaking stamp, and it's like the coolest episode of all time.
I need to watch that. That sounds amazing.
Oh, he talked to like the postmaster. He asked about how the postal service works. I mean, you think about how amazing children's television was then
Oh yeah,
compared to like Teletubbies or something, you know?
yeah.
Oh my God, look at this. Look at it forming though, like taking form.
Isn't that pretty sweet?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable the more I look at it. Look, it's like a very it's a, like I'm talking about Mr. Rogers. I love to keep it G rated, so I'll use an initial. Looking at it is a pure mind F.
What is it? What did you say?
Looking at it is a
Oh
pure mind
yeah.
F.
I think that's why. I think that's why, like, now looking at it now, like
Oh my God.
even though even like your snout comment was like, I
Blown
actually
away.
I actually kind of like the fact that it's so ambiguous.
No, but that's going away. You see, like
Yep.
it was only a snout for a period of time, but then once it's designed around, it goes away. It's like it's a completely organic process.
Yep.
You know what? It's funny when you look at this now. It looks like my favorite painting, the vanity painting of the woman with the
A little bit, yeah.
vanity and the skull. Like now you look at it, it kind of gives you that impression,
Mm-hmm.
which to me is one of the great works of art. Unbelievable. Can you please hit save?
Control S. Yeah. My normal crew that watch these, they're always like Control S, Control S.
But it's funny. It's like my wife is a chef. She's a baker, and I always call it the tornado when she goes through the kitchen. She'll take out spices and stuff is everywhere, and I always say like, hey, can you put it back like midway through cooking because then we all have less to clean up. And she says, no way, because her brain doesn't go in can't go in reverse. Like it's only
Right.
go 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 go. Like she's on to the next thing.
Right.
So that's why you're not like saving. It's like you can only go forward, being productive. You can't just stop and then save.
Yeah.
Look at that. It's funny. I've been friends with Dan Phillips for I don't know 20 years, and I've never seen him so enthusiastic about watching stuff as your Dawn's Early Light. He's not a real watcher of stuff, but I got like 10 texts. Well, what is that Jackson guy using? And then he says, well, it doesn't matter the hardware because you could give him a stick and he could do this. But I just want to know.
That's nice.
And you're saying it's a Wacom Syntac?
Wacom Cintiq, yeah.
Are those expensive?
Yeah. Relatively speaking, yeah.
Dan Phillips, the illustrator of the original Clip Joint, worked with Dave Buck and I at the Apple Store in Costa Mesa, and we all became friends at the same time. And we sold the original Wacom tablets for the G4s back then. Believe it or not.
Yeah, the little gray ones. I remember those.
Yeah, they were kind of like a gray purple, kind of like
Yep.
a cool gray.
I used a 4x5 Intuos tablet for years.
Hey, that was right, Intuos. I forgot about that name. I just remember I bought one. I bought one of the big ones because they gave us a big discount.
Yeah.
And I thought, I said, here it comes. I'm going to become the next great
Yes.
computer artist. And I used it for about an hour.
Yeah, I ended up getting the 9x12, the bigger one.
Yes.
And I thought I had made it.
Well, you have. They should hire you. They should hire you to be just a model. I can't believe Kalush didn't know the name of that deck.
I didn't either. He usually knows all that kind of stuff because he has all those old sample books. Because that's
People
his
that don't know,
that's his bread and butter of collecting are the sample books.
Can you tell people who Bill Kalush is for people who don't know?
Yeah, Bill Kalush is the owner of Expert Playing Card Company. I work a lot with him on a lot of the printing of my decks. And I don't know that much about the Magic scene or anything like that, but I know that Bill has been pretty. He's pretty. What did you? Like, he's pretty OG when it comes
He
to the
was the
Magic scene,
OG.
right?
If you know what, I used to go to lunch with Bill when the Buck twins and I would go to New York City, and Bill, I believe, I don't want to be incorrect, but I'm pretty sure that he was David Blaine's first agent.
Yes, he was his manager for sure. And
That's right.
you can go on like YouTube and like search that old David Blaine episode where he's firing the gun into his mouth. I don't know if you remember that, but
I don't remember it.
there's a thing where David Blaine shoots a 22 bullet into his mouth and catches it, you know. And
Okay, I remember him catching the bullet.
in the video, Bill is the guy that shoots the gun.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I know that Kalush is a great entertainer. You know, when you go to lunch with him, and I remember him telling me, I said, "What was it like being Blaine's? You know, because I know Blaine. What was it like being Blaine's first manager?" And he said it was horrible. He didn't care. You'd get him a gig, and you'd tell him, "Hey, Dave, this plays 10K," and he was broke, and he'd say, "No, I don't want to do that one for this reason." And I'd be like, "Are you nuts? Come on, this is your career." And he said it was like pulling teeth.
Yeah. Uh, and I also there was David Blaine was on the Joe Rogan podcast show, and David Blaine, like Joe Rogan asked him, like they're talking about like practice and 10,000 hours and stuff like that,
Right.
and Joe Rogan asks him something like, you know, who, like, have you had like 10,000 hours? Anyways, the conversation led to David talking about Bill Kalush for like 10 minutes about how David just like looked up to Bill because Bill had such good card handling ability.
Oh yeah, the Buck twins used to talk about Bill Kalush's skills. And when you talk to Bill, you don't realize that he can do that stuff. You just think of him as kind of like a business
Yeah.
person, but all the magicians looked up to Bill.
And the first time I met Bill was in 2013 when I went to the first 52 plus Joker convention that I went to. And
you do one of my favorite decks, the redraw of the skull.
yes, the one that David Blaine ended up using, and then Bill used a couple of times. Yes, I redid that skull one.
Bill gave me a limited edition one of those, the Black Tuck.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I love that deck.
The one with the
bicycle, and Bill told me that he said, "Can you believe USPCC doesn't even have this on file? I got to get someone to redo this."
Yeah, is that the one with the? That's the one with the embroidered skull on it, the yellow embroidered skull.
No, the box. I think the tuck. You mean?
Yeah.
The tuck is all black, and I think it
Gotcha.
has an embossed skull.
Yeah. Because there's one that we did that has like an embroidered. Because we were testing out the embroidery before I did the Deck the Halls thing, or that ugly Christmas sweater deck.
Yes.
And we embroidered a kind of a gold skull onto the. It's like a soft black touch.
It's amazing. It's a it's interesting that Bill found you that long ago and hired you to do work.
Well, it's funny. Well, he really didn't even hire me. We met at the convention, and it was literally just me. I was standing at the back of the room, and he was standing at the back of the room. I didn't know who anybody was. I didn't know who Bill was, and we just started talking, and we just kind of hit it off, and we just chatted for like hours at that first convention, and then we were just like, we should try to do something together. And I was like, yep, we should. And I can't remember the first deck we did together. I think it was the 52 plus Joker deck. Look at that. Look how cool that flower stuff works.
That's unbelievable. It looks so old too. I mean, like it looks like now that you put. It's funny because it looks super kind of new. I'm seeing it for the first time, but then once you put the flowers, it gives like that antiquity to it. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and when I end up drawing it the final time, I'll really kind of put a kind of a rough edge to everything to make it look like somebody, like these guys would do this on these like carve these out of plates to print them, so that the edges are not going to be straight, all perfect.
It's one of the hallmarks of Clip Joint was, I believe it was the first time ever done, where you had a custom pip, like one different pip, on the cards. You've seen that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Dan Phillips, really made the edges really straight in that. And actually, Noir, the sequel to Clip Joint, which was done in 2014, which is just being printed now.
Mm-hmm.
It's all like scratchboard. Dan
Right.
Phillips did. It's like one of the most amazing works ever when you see this Noir, the
Mm-hmm.
sequel, and he drew the pips like you're saying, like a rough edge, and he tried to match it to how it would have been stamped back then. And
Yeah.
I always loved because when I like artists like Van Gogh, I like to look at the sketches. I don't like the finished work. I always like the sketches, and I like rough things.
Yeah.
That's amazing, Jackson. I could hardly sleep last night thinking about it, and it's like almost a waste of time imagining what it can be because you're always going to impress. I'm serious. I could have really had a good dream about what it would be, but I didn't think it would be that because you can't anticipate it.
Yeah. And I definitely, I did a little bit of, photo reference, getting the pictures of the skull and the moth and stuff last night, getting ready. But that's one of the things that I've learned where I try not to think about it that much.
Like a bone. That's like a bone joint in the middle.
What? That's a great idea.
Look at that.
We're doing that. Let's do like
Look at that. That's what it is. That's amazing.
Let's do like a hip joiner.
Sorry to cut you off, but I was very
No,
excited.
you're good. You're good.
Oh my goodness. We're doing that.
We're doing that.
When I write your biography, Jackson, it's going to be called "We're Doing That: The Story of Jackson Robinson."
Look at this. We'll do like an ulna and a radius or something.
Did you ever study anatomy drawing?
Oh yeah, tons of it.
All great artists that I knew or worked with, they got into, like, I know Dan Phillips when we were in college. All he was doing was anatomical drawings, and I was saying like why, and he was saying that basically like that was how to become a great artist was to get into anatomy.
There's a book I've got it on my shelf somewhere. I can't remember what the actual name of it is, but it's like this series of like these 5 books that this guy drew. And it's just a book of just different human forms, and they're all just like sketches, right? And I read somewhere, I was like, if you want to be a good artist, especially if you want to be able to draw the human form, just copy every picture in this book. And by the time you're done with the book, by the time you're done copying it, you'll have a very strong grasp of the human form. And I did that, and I was just like, I just sketched them and just copied them. I have to find it. I think it's called, let me see. I want to say, and they're super cheap too. They're just like regular. I think it's called Bridgman's Anatomy. Yes, this right here. So it's called Constructive Anatomy by George.
I have that book. I drew that book in college, and I failed. I didn't draw everyone like you.
But he has like there's like 4 of there's like 4 or 5 different colors. Where, let me see.
Mine's a beige one. Mine's like a kind of a greenish beige.
There's a face one. There's a heads. There's the human machine. This looks like it's all of them together. Then there's a blue one that's the hands, and then there's a green that's like life. That's like life drawing.
Yes.
Just over and over, just copying all the images.
It's interesting. I haven't thought about. I still have one of those actually in my garage. That would have been from '97 when I went to Orange Coast College right after high school and took all the art and life drawing classes.
I think I want to make all these bones, but I think just keeping one.
Yeah, I agree.
Keeps it like kind of mysterious.
Absolutely right.
And I'm even thinking about we just have one end to where it's like if you find it, you find another Easter egg.
There's just so many though.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
This is so. This is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life. Unbelievable. And I don't want to give anything away. I really want it to be a surprise. But when people see the tuck case for this deck, which Jackson and I have already done, Jackson recorded an MP4 of it, and I swear to you, I watch it over and over again, and my wife will watch it, and it's almost surreal. And again, I'm not yanking my own chain. I'm just in awe of your skill, and just when you see the tuck case, people, I don't know. It's maybe one for the ages. I don't know how it's beat. I really don't. When you first told me you were going to do these Don's early lights too, I thought, yeah, maybe he can do like 4 of them. There's no way he can keep it up for 42.
Oh man, I can't. I mean, probably the past 2 or 3 weeks, my wife and I have been going back and forth uh, of why am I not doing it 7 days a week and just doing it on Saturdays and Sundays too, just to keep my productivity, because my attitude is so much better when have been productive in the morning, and
That's a great point.
it's not
Because
hurting
part of
me.
me would want to say, hey, don't do it 7 days a week because you'll burn out.
No, like it's kind of one of those things like when you always hear people talking about like work-life balance. Like, first of all, you should never, like, nobody else should ever comment on your own work-life balance just because there's so many different variables for different people.
It's true.
And like for me, I am an unhappy person when I'm not drawing or if I'm not drawing on a regular basis.
That's beautiful.
So for me, if I'm not drawing, if I'm not working, and I don't even feel like it's work. Like if I'm not drawing, aka working, then I'm less happy. And what that equals is me being a jerk husband to my wife, me being a jerk father. And so like my work-life balance works the best when I'm drawing a lot.
I love your ability to be open and candid.
Because, my wife can instantly tell, like, if I'm in a bad mood or something like that, the first thing she asks you is like, how did the drawing go this morning or whatever? Or like, how did your work go this morning? I'm like, I was sucking it up, But the cool thing is the Don's Early Lights have really pushed me just to get even better than what I thought I was.
Is it possible to get better though, Jackson?
Oh yeah, for sure. Dude, this is a sweet back design.
This is my favorite back I've ever seen in my life.
It's awesome.
It's unbelievable.
It's pretty sweet.
It's unbelievable.
All right, so what we're going to do now is, let's take the owl head out. Let's just simplify some so I can see what I'm doing here. Let's take that out.
Unbelievable.
Take the moth out.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, if this deck would have been made by someone else, I would hate them. I would be very upset. I would want this for mine.
Let's see here. Okay, let's take this.
Oh, everyone, Control S is off. Dude, that looks gnarly. That looks freaking evil.
I like it. All right, so let's do it. Let's make the final.
You know what's interesting is, like the floral pattern is, my grandma she did a lot of great interior design stuff, and she had these beautiful wallpaper from the 50s that was gray wallpaper with like pink and metallic silver floral prints on it. The beautiful old wallpaper.
Oh yeah.
And it was all pink and gray, and I wish that we had kept it, when their house is gone. And it was just, these floral prints kind of bring me back to being in my grandmother's house. And I don't know why, I'm getting like goosebumps. It just reminds me of my grandmother. And also, it's like the Freemason, the symbol, is so fundamental to the kind of the clip joint background, is almost nod to a secret society. My mother's family were all Freemasons, even in the old country in Scotland. And I have like my great grandpa's Bible, the gilded Bible from the Freemasons, and the most beautiful handwriting in there. Yeah. And that forms that shape without even talking about it or trying. It's like things come through.
Yeah, my mother's father was a Shriner, which is a Freemason, my mom sent me this picture just recently of my granddad in the Shriner hat, and it just looks so dope.
Oh, that's crazy.
Let me see if I can find it.
Were they Scottish background?
Yes, we have Scottish, yes. Let's see if I can find it. So
people want to make up like this kind of whole world about Freemasonry being this secret society of people who control you, but it's actually just people who want to do good things in the world and put out a positive vibe.
Yeah. me see here. I feel like it's in this one right here.
I'd love to see it.
My brother and I, we got this a Christmas gift from my parents, and it's called what's it called? Storyworth, and it basically this company creates questions for people, and so like we got it from my dad and my mom, and what they do is they send them questions every week, and uh, the person answers these questions, and at the end of the year, they have 52 weeks of these stories and these questions that these people answer, which is the people being my parents. And then they print a hard-covered book. And so, like, this email.
Storyworth?
Yeah, Storyworth. Like, this email right here, the question that they sent my mom was, tell us about your father. What are some of your favorite memories of him? What things did you inherit from your dad? And all this stuff that she wrote here is stuff that my mom, now, my parents are doing a really good job of being really in-depth about this because every one of their answers is like 12 pages. And so like they'll add all this story, like this is my grandfather, and they'll add all these pictures. And all these pictures and images and story will be in the hardcover book. This is my great uncle, which was a magician. See Ricky Raccoon?
Wait. He was a magician?
Oh yeah, he was the president of like the Texas Magician Society for a while. His name was
That is so weird.
William Harrison Mays.
Did you know him?
Oh yeah, he was. My grandfather had died before I was born, and so this was kind of like he was kind of my granddad. He was my grandfather's brother, and I remember he had this. His office just had all kinds of magic tricks in it. I would go in there and
do you know where they are now?
Like where the magic tricks are. I'm guessing it's with his kids.
You should find out, and we should do like an episode on it. That is freaking cool.
Yeah, he's in Lubbock, Texas.
I love Lubbock. I've been there.
So there's my look at my granddad. How just
look at the clothing though.
Oh yeah, look how just dope he looked. I wish I could pull that off now.
I love the glasses pouch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Come on. Yeah. Look at that. There's my grandmother right there. Big Non, we call her Winon. There's my grandfather there. Big Non. Her name was Winon, and my mother's name is Nonette, and so everybody would call her Big Non and my mother Little Non.
Oh, that's those are like those kind of great Southern names that you don't hear anymore. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's old Truett. He was a bombardier. Look at that picture. I've never seen this picture before. Look at these guys. Look at their.
They were hanging out with Errol Flynn.
Yeah. He owned a company called Mays Gas, which I want to do a deck of cards that says it's a Mays Gas, Crosbyton, Texas. Oh yeah, dude, it's gonna look just like this.
That is so cool.
You can be assured I'm going to do a Mays Gas.
Wait, so he had a gas company?
In Crosbyton.
What does that mean? That he resold gas?
Yeah, he's like a propane company. They have them now. Like he had a truck.
Like the precursor to Hank Hill.
I guess yeah, in a way. He would do this skit where he was like dressed up, and he was like this little kind of short person. He was doing a puppet. Yeah, he's great.
Dude, your family's cool.
Yeah, but this is that story thing that my mom is putting together, and all these pictures and stories are going to be in that book.
So wait, that then is your grandma and grandpa?
Yeah, this is Big Non, and this is my grandfather Truett, the one that was
is Big Non still with us?
No, she died in I think 2009.
How old was she?
She was born in 21. So she'd be like almost 100. She'd be 100 now.
It's too bad they're not with us. I mean, it'd be great to learn, especially from that generation now.
Oh yeah, and I never got to meet Truett, but I always hear tons of great stories.
Someone once said that we are closer genetically to our grandparents than we are our own parents, or
really,
kind of skips a generation.
That's interesting.
And I was always very much like my grandfather, Sam Fulton, and when I would meet some of his old friends after he had passed away, they would look to their wife and say, or look to their husband, "Can you believe it? It's like we're in the room with Sam." And it would give me kind of the chills, and it was like, of course we're influenced by people that are with us when we're a child, but there's something more to it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Maize gas. Do you ever go back to those towns where your family was from and try to look at some history? I mean, for someone that has a long history in Texas like you.
Oh yeah, there was there is a in that area by Lubbock. It's called the county's called Blanco County, I think. Uh, and there's a little white rock house, and my grandmother on my father's side, she was the first, because the whole area was just straight up Comanche Indians for a long time until the Rough Riders came in and kind of, pushed them out, whatever. But she was the first. She was the first white baby born in that county.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it was in a little white rock house, and they have there's like the ruins of the rock house there now, but then they have like a reproduction of the white rock house there now that you can go check out.
But it's actually like a historical thing.
Oh yeah, my dad, they live in Canyon, Texas. That's probably an hour and a half from Lubbock, and my dad's an old, a kind of a classic car buff, and he has an old 64 and a half Mustang. That's my brother's, and he'll take road trips in the Mustang, and he'll drive to Crosbyton all the time, and just like post on his little Facebook page. He'll just post like, he'll put the phone on the dashboard, and he'll play like Patsy Cline or something on the radio, and he'll just stream him driving down these old West Texas highways.
This is your dad.
Huh?
This is your father.
Yeah, and he'll just post these videos, like 30, 40-second videos of him just cruising down these Texas, like these back road Texas highways in his Mustang. So you see the hood, that kind of iconic hood of a Mustang.
What color is it?
Red. And then you hear Patsy Cline, crazy, oh crazy. It's such a cool thing. And he'll go back to like where he grew up, and where all this stuff was like, and he'll say this empty field is where our little 1-bedroom wooden house was, and the cotton field that my dad worked on.
Right.
Control S.
I love the feeling of home, the history of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one time when I was with Dan Phillips, we were at Dan Phillips' father owns the longest owned family car business in San Diego County called Bussy's Automotive. It's on next to the 5 freeway in Oceanside, California. And Dan told me, he said, my grandpa, Bussy, he picked cotton where the 5 freeway is today when he came from Oklahoma during the Dust Bowl.
Wow.
And I said, really? And he said, someone offered to sell him the land where like the PCH highway is, if anyone knows, Highway 1 or Hill Street in Oceanside. And, they offered to sell him land, and it was so cheap. It was like pennies an acre. And his grandpa said, no one in their right mind will ever build anywhere around here.
Yeah.
That's what he said. His grandpa said that, that was it. And he could not believe that anyone would ever build in the area. And he turned it flat down.
Wow.
And when you look at history, it's fascinating to think that there was cotton growing.
Oh, yeah.
Where the 5 freeway was in Oceanside, California, with a future auto mechanic picking it to support his wife and 3 daughters.
Wow.
It's amazing history.
When I lived in Dallas, north of Dallas in Frisco, this guy that I was friends with, he was from California, and just as I got to know him better, and he would tell me stories about California and him growing up and that kind of thing. And he grew up in Anaheim.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And he said that when I was a kid is when they were building Disneyland. And he was telling me stories about how him and his buddies would jump the fence and go play in like the Swiss Family Robinson's tree,
that's cool.
like over the construction fence and stuff like that. And he was pretty well off, this guy, and he had a lot of Mickey Mouse stuff in his house, and one day I just like, I was like, one day as after I got to know him better, I was like, all right, what's up with all the Mickey Mouse stuff? And he started telling me the story, and he was telling me about how he grew up right across the street from it, and when they were building it, and then he said when Disney was coming in and buying up all the land, and Disney was buying all the plots of land of all the houses and stuff that were nearby. His mom was a single mom, and he said that my mom was one of the few, if not the only, people of that group of people that had the wherewithal to get a lawyer, because everybody was like, oh yeah, I'll take the money,
Right.
kind of a thing. And he was like, she was one of the only people that got the wherewithal to get a lawyer, and so she got a lawyer, and instead of selling the land, she, made up a contract to lease her land, and they moved, and they ended up moving away, and they leased the land from Disney. And so, and then long story short, when we lived in California, we ended up we went to Disneyland a lot, and this guy came to visit us because he always comes to Anaheim. He always came to California anyways, for different things. And one day he came and visited us, and he asked us if he wanted to go to Disneyland. And we were like, sure, we'll go to Disneyland. And so he takes us to Disneyland, and we're kind of pulling up to the front of the park. And he was like, you remember when I was telling you about where I used to live? We were driving up to the front of the park, and he was like, this is kind of where my house was, the vicinity of where my house was. And sorry, I'm drawing. I sometimes can't think and talk and draw. He was like, this is where my house was, kind of the vicinity of where my house was. And then he goes, from here, and we're driving, and we're kind of, that front part of the park where all the trees are, and you go down the row, and then you go into the park.
Yes.
He was like, from here to the front gates is our land that we still leased to Walt Disney.
Did they still do that?
Yes. He said every like 6 years they renegotiate the lease.
How long? What year did he move to Frisco?
I don't know when he moved to Frisco, but I mean, and he was just talking about how at the time when he was growing up, it was just all orange groves.
Yes.
In Anaheim.
What are those trees called? The kind of long, skinny.
I think
what I'm talking about. They look.
Yeah,
like
they're like Tuscany pines or something.
What are they called?
I just always think of them as like Tuscany pines.
Eucalyptus, or there's something. These kind of, I forget what they're called. They're like these long, these giant. They look like, in Van Gogh's paintings, like those tufted, like long, thin. They're all over Orange County, but the reason they were all around Disneyland is because they're a wind damper for orange groves.
Yes.
So if you look at the perimeter of old photos of Disneyland, you'll just see huge lines of, I wish I could know what those trees were called, all over. And it was a wind damper, for farmers. You forget that. And they would be burning like the oil, things to keep the groves, during the cold weather.
Uh-huh.
You ever talk to this guy anymore?
I saw him a couple of years ago.
Is he older?
Oh yeah, he's probably 70s, I'm guessing.
Yeah, when you go to a place like Orange County and you look at it, you talk to people who, grew up there, and they'll talk about, oh, I used to hunt over here, and now it's like Main Street.
Yeah, exactly.
Busy thoroughfare, and people are hunting, shooting doves.
Yep.
I love the history of America, and looking at places and seeing how they change, and talking to people who were there early on. It's interesting how things morph and become different things.
Yep.
Like thinking about the time period of Clip Joint. In 1946, you had all those beautiful Victorian homes in downtown Los Angeles,
Mm-hmm.
Angelino Heights, and you look at, there's like all the World War II vets came back, and they lived in SROs, single room occupancy, which
Yep.
are basically like, motel rooms.
Yeah.
and they got little jobs, and there was kind of a lot of those guys saw the horror of war, and therefore you have the kind of film noir. You
Yeah.
got a lot of returning vets to this town, and you look at LA now, you could never imagine a ton of military vets living in LA renting single room occupancies.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Griffin is on the chat right now. This is what we're working on right now. Brad Fulton is on with me, and we're working on a new version of the clip joints. If anybody knows what those trees are, Griffin Kessler, who's on the chat, he's one of my regular crew. He knows all kinds of stuff about trees. We're always talking about trees.
So Griffin, I want to know the name. I can't believe I don't remember it, but those long, tall, green trees that are wind dampers for orange groves. They're all over where I'm from in California. The name has escaped me. They look like when Van Gogh paints those, just those long.
I always thought they were like, I always called them Tuscany pines.
I want to say eucalyptus, or look at wind. Yeah, they're like, no, they're not that.
They're not like this?
Similar. They come from the ground though. They don't have like a trunk.
Gotcha.
Look at like a wind damper trees, or the trees around Disneyland. There's still some there.
Yeah.
Actually, in Tustin, California, in the old Main Street where the farmers market is, they have a ton of them as well. And when you see those in Orange County, you can imagine that was an orange grove. Which I don't know if there's even like 5 orange trees left in Orange County now. It's probably just all sold to developers. It's amazing. It's great that you have your regular crew that tune in, that understand what they're getting.
Yeah. That's my crew. I was telling Brad about. I was telling Brad, now listen, you can't have any riffraff on the show because my crew will obliterate you if you give us any riffraff.
I am riffraff. You know what's funny is, did you like living in Frisco?
It was good. It was pretty. There was a pretentious element to it, but it was nice. It's completely different now though, because the Cowboys are there now, and
yes.
it's
they weren't there?
Huh?
They weren't there?
No, they were in Irving, Texas, which is about 45 minutes away, and then they moved to Frisco, and then it's just like, it was already getting developed when I was there before the Cowboys were there, and then when the Cowboys got there, they were moving in right as we were leaving, and then when they got there, it was just like, now it's just like development city.
I went there to this place Jerry Jones built called the Star.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Cowboys head offices and like a mall. And I swear to you, it looks like if you could knock down Orange County, California, and rebuild it today, it would be Frisco.
Yeah, I concur with that statement.
Like a lot of the development in Irvine or Newport Beach, it looks like Frisco. It's funny. Jerry Jones was born in Los Angeles. People don't really.
I didn't know that.
And then they moved back to Arkansas, where his family had a grocery store. But I always think, wow, he's the most famous Angelino Texan of all time. He grew up in Arkansas. What's funny about football is like when you talk to Texans, they love the Cowboys, but I think Jerry Jones was voted the second most hated Texan of all time. I don't remember the list, but it was Texans do not like Jerry Jones because of the firing of Tom Landry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They really hold that against him. It's funny because, I'll just talk to an old Texan and say, so I just always ask, what do you think of Jerry Jones? It's never positive. And I think, well, you got to look at the bright side. I mean, the Cowboys, I'm not a big football fan, but the idea to market a football team is Jerry Jones. I mean, he invented sports marketing.
Yeah.
As it is, like America's team and having a brand. I mean, it's great business strategy.
Holy moly. Look at this, Brad. Look at this.
It looks like a voodoo doll.
No. Look at this, dude. You have the skull.
Oh, my God.
And the ribs.
Oh, my goodness.
Isn't that cool?
When you do this, there's always more.
Yeah. I just like, that looks like a ribs.
To me, it looks like, I'm a big fan of Saul Bass. Do you know who Saul Bass was?
Uh-uh.
He's a graphic designer. He did if you look at United Airlines and any of the identity systems from the 60s and 70s.
Right.
He did the title sequences for Hitchcock's Psycho and North by
Okay.
Northwest.
Gotcha.
But he did a famous movie poster called Bunny Lake is Missing for a movie from the 50s. I think it was an Otto Preminger movie. And this silhouette in the middle reminds me of the Bunny Lake is Missing. It's totally abstract. If you see the poster, you'll say, I don't get it.
Right.
But it reminds me of the great Bunny Lake is Missing movie poster.
Huh.
It's just funny how silhouettes can give you that, that feeling.
Yeah. I'm going to turn symmetry off just for a second to make this kind of asymmetrical skull.
I had an unhealthy obsession with Saul Bass when I was at USC and did so much research on him that one of my now friends who was a graduate student, he said, I didn't think that you went here. I thought that you were just a Saul Bass researcher. He did like the title sequence for Psycho. He storyboarded that. And that's when Hitchcock and Bass had that big riff because Saul Bass claims he directed the shower sequence.
Really?
Saul Bass claims that he directed it because he storyboarded the frames. There's like 57 frames or whatever it is, like the knife, then Janet Leigh, then the shower, and how it's organized. And Saul Bass claims that he chose those elements.
And then the blood and the going down the drain.
Your mind. You did not direct the scene.
Wow.
And that was the end of their working relationship.
Huh.
Like Vertigo. What are those called? Lejeux curves?
Yeah.
It's like he did the Vertigo opening sequence, North by Northwest, with all those lines coming in. I mean, just amazing stuff. Then Scorsese hired him later to do like Cape Fear, maybe The Age of Innocence. Did you ever see the original Cape Fear?
I don't think so.
Just look at that.
There's another skull right there. Why not?
What's funny is one of my good buddies, Bentley Mitchum. I hope Bentley watches this. I'll have to send him a link. Bentley is Robert Mitchum's grandson. The film actor Robert Mitchum.
Yeah.
Noir. Out of the Past, the quintessential film noir. But Bentley, he's an amateur magician. He loves magic and the Magic Castle. And I sent him a bunch of clip joint when they came out, and I'm like, hey, dude, your grandpa was a big inspiration for this whole theme of the deck.
That's cool.
He'll love it. We got to send him some of these. Bentley's out there watching. He was Winnie Cooper's brother on the Wonder Years. Do you remember the Wonder Years?
Yes.
Remember her stud brother getting in the parking lot, and he's got the shirt rolled up, and he was killed in the Vietnam War an episode later?
Oh, man.
That's Bentley. And then his dad was Chris Mitchum, who was in the John Wayne movies.
Okay.
In the 70s. So that's Bentley's kind of, lineage. And when you talk to Bentley and you hear these stories about Elvis and just, stuff he had heard from his grandfather. And when his grandfather, Robert Mitchum, was passing away, Bentley was with him the night before he died at his home in Santa Barbara. He said that I said, what, did he give you any life advice? And he said, yes, he did. My grandfather, who had emphysema, I think, he pulled the tubes out of his nose and he took a big drag of his cigarette. He said, Bentley, life is a playground. Go play.
Oh, wow.
And I always remember that. I mean, what a great, and also coming from Robert Mitchum, who obviously did that. Who would have ever thought in 2010, when I was putting this deck together, that in the future, 10 years later, 10 plus years later, I would be on a computer, an iMac, looking at a screen, redoing it with the great Jackson Robinson, telling these stories and reliving it. It's unbelievable. You never know what the future brings.
Yeah, you don't.
Unbelievable. You're going from a sidewalk with Dan Buck talking about Federal 52s to now working together. It's just funny how things go in a big full circle.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Get this wing.
When I did the first clip joint, or the only clip joint, I remember thinking, I can't believe I'm getting it. I never even thought that people ask me all the time, did you have a business plan? Did you think that there was going to be more decks or this? And I'm like, are you kidding? I mean, back then, just to have a deck out, I mean, that was it.
Yeah.
That was the prize.
Yeah.
You made a deck. Cool.
Well, that's kind of way it was with when I started was, with the Federal 52, like I didn't have a plan. I just wanted to make a cool. I had an idea, and I wanted to make this idea, and when it kind of blew up, it was just kind of a thing of like, well, I'm just going to keep this. I'm just going to keep doing this until it breaks. And
You know what, though, I have to say is that you brought a lot of people into the playing card industry because in the past it was only cardists or magicians. I mean, who would be buying the original smoke and mirrors? There was no collector market. I mean,
right.
it was only people who used them,
Mm-hmm.
at the time, or one of Blaine's decks. That was it. And then when you came in later, and when we talk to people now, they'll say, oh, I'll say, hi, how did you find Fulton's playing cards? Oh, I was a fan of Federal 52s. I buy King's Wild. I found you from that. Like, you brought in a whole nother element to
Mm.
the playing card world. Look at that style. Just look at that. You're probably going to wear a hole through your syntax.
I I do have to replace. There's like a little film thing on the top that I have to replace every once in a while.
Oh, you actually do wear through it.
Oh yeah, and especially like the little nibs that I have on my little pins.
Have you ever been to the Magic Castle?
Yeah, Chris Choco took me once.
Oh, yeah. Chris is a great guy.
Yeah, it was a
I
fun.
actually liked his deck a lot, that Whispering Imps.
Mm-hmm. I think he did a really good job. I don't know much about the Magic stuff and the Magic history other than what like people like Kalush and stuff tell me. But like I think he did a really good job of kind of capturing and like being respectful of that kind of history
Absolutely.
that came with it.
Yeah, I loved the deck, and he gave me one of like the special edition ones that was like a black tuck case with the little, red foiled Stutzman,
Mm-hmm.
imp, and I loved it. I mean, I loved this. I love that deck. Did you have fun with Chelko there?
Oh yeah, yeah. We got to hang out a couple of times. We actually even pitched an idea because he used to be he was a producer on the Jay Leno show.
That's right.
And I flew out. He had this idea of collaborating with Jay Leno, and doing with his show, Jay Leno's Garage, where he all the old cars and stuff.
I love Jay Leno.
And I flew out there, and this is when I went to the Magic Castle. I flew out there and met Chelko, and we went to Jay's garage, and we met with Jay Leno.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. He set up the meeting, and we met with Jay, and we kind of pitched this idea. I can even show it to you. Let me just save
That's
this.
so cool. Was Jay cool in person or what?
Yeah, he was. He was very, 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 very cool and talking. He's easy to talk to. But we pitched this idea of doing this, Jay Leno's Garage deck where we had, 4 or 5 different decks that represented different countries of old racing. And all the court cards were going to be cars in Jay's collection.
Oh, that's cool.
And it just ended up not working just because of all of the the licenses we'd have to get from every car manufacturer. And the interesting thing is the original Jay Leno's back design is what ended up becoming. I took the art that I'd already done for that and I repurposed it, and it became what became the Three Stooges back that I did for Chris.
Oh, I love the Three Stooges deck.
So this was kind of
wow.
This was just like some of the original. This was like not even this was because I took one of the old bicycle backs of the motor car, and I started, designing elements. This is not even the most recent one. Let me see if I can find it. This has been years. I've slept a few times since then. Where's it at?
How tall was Jay Leno?
He's pretty short.
Was he? You always hear that he's 5'10". Is that true?
Yeah, I would say it's probably true.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find it. I don't want to spend too much time on it though. Yeah, I don't even have it. I don't even know where it's at. Huh?
It's a great idea, really.
But it was just kind of one of those things that there was too many licenses that we'd had to get.
Yeah, and we know that Jay Leno doesn't have the budget for that.
Yeah, and he wasn't gonna, and he wasn't gonna. Well, he wasn't gonna spend any money on this project. He was just gonna, stamp his name on it, and that's about it.
I like Jay Leno's show. I never thought that he was funny. I never thought that he was.
But he had a
I
good
think
show,
Conan
though.
O'Brien's funny. I think Jay was a great host, though.
Yes, he was.
He was a really great host. He was very neutral. He was very likable. He asked great questions. Nothing hard hitting. All that stuff is, probably screened beforehand. But I liked Jay. My Jay Leno connection is very advantageous for me because I'm a photographer, and when I was in film school, I've always shot with a Leica, since
Mm-hmm.
I've been young. And my friend Mary Jo Cooney, um, she was Leica's rep.
Hmm.
She still is. I think she's just retiring now. Her husband Ebby, they're great friends of mine. And Mary Jo said to me, she said, "Hey, your style, you should really shoot with this lens called the Noctilux. Your style of photography is so f1, f1.4. Very just one
Yeah.
single focal point." And I said, "Okay, Mary Jo, how much do those lenses cost?" She said, "Oh, they're like $8,000." And I said, "Okay, Mary Jo, I have like $1,000 to my name. I work at a laser disc company, shrink wrapping laser discs, in between school. So how am I going to get this lens? I don't want to go to prison for robbing someone." She said, "Hey, I got this guy. He's Jay Leno's teleprompter operator.
Oh wow.
He's run into some kind of financial issues. He's an old collector guy. He has an Octolux he's got to unload to pay a tax bill." I said, "Okay, let me talk to him." So I talked to this man who will go unnamed, really nice guy. And he said, "Yeah, I got one. Can you do 3,000?" And I said, "No, I can't." And he said, "Okay, I like you. Let's meet up." So we met up at Metro Point in Costa Mesa, and he brought the lens, and he said, "How much do you really have?" And he said, "Do you have $1,800?" I said, "I have like $1,300 to my name." And I just kept talking to him, and he said, "Okay, I'll sell it to you." And he
Wow.
sold me the lens for $1,300. I thought I was gonna be homeless, after buying
Yeah, exactly.
the lens, and I bought it, and I
What
actually got
what
back
year
in
was
touch.
that?
They're like, "What's that?"
What year was that?
This was got to be 2002,
Yeah.
2003. I still have the lens. I shot with it. I shot the trilogy, the cover for the Buck Twins trilogy with
Mm-hmm.
this. It's an f1. It was the fastest production lens ever made.
Wow.
And it's so big and heavy, and it's a great lens. And they can't make them exactly as they did because I believe the glass has maybe mercury in it, or lead. No, it has lead in it.
Oh wow.
And there's like environmental reasons why it was made in either Germany or Canada. They made two different production runs, but you can't make the lens exactly the same. So collectors want this lens because it's this, basically you can't reproduce it, but I still have it, and it's worth so much money.
Yeah.
Hey, that looks like another owl. Look at
Yeah.
that.
Well, I thought this was like another skull right here.
Oh, I know. It's just amazing how there's something subconscious about themes for anybody that's
Add
watching, that's
add some teeth right
interested
here.
in designing cards.
Yeah.
You have to know how to recognize and ride a theme. And when you're going to make a deck, make sure that you have a theme. Just don't do a parody of playing cards. Really respect the genre and think about themes. Think about a story. That was always my thing, is that I
Yeah.
wanted Clip Joint to feel like you opened it and you could smell the smoke on it from
Mm.
1946.
It's
Really,
all about story.
absolutely. I've always joked that the Bucks and I were just failed filmmakers. They wanted to go to USC Film School. I was at USC Film School. They couldn't get in, and then I obviously never made it in Hollywood. I couldn't stand working there, which I did for many years. And it's like a deck should be a movie.
Yeah.
It should be a cinematic experience.
Well, that's one of the things. I mean, that's the reason why I like illustration so much, and just like classic literature illustration, because the artwork is so much more enjoyable and dynamic when there's a story being told.
Absolutely. Even if it's not an intelligible story, even if it's abstract, but you know it yourself, and you're thinking about it. It's like when I did the Ace Fulton's deck. It took so long to do it because you wanted to make sure it really felt like, you don't want it to be a ripoff, like to feel like you're just copying like a kitschy version of a 70s era.
Right.
But to reinvent something from a period like you've done so many times. you have to really know the history and go into it. You have
Yeah.
to really live in it in your own body.
Yeah.
Like I look at your diptych. What is it? Is it Washington crossing something, or what's the
Yeah.
diptych?
Washington crossing the Delaware.
Yeah, I always look at that and I think, man, I can't believe it's a modern drawing, being done in this era.
Mm-hmm. God,
But
what a,
without saying that you copy, you know what I'm saying? It's
right.
like you really have to understand the history, the techniques, a lot more than just having a skill to draw it.
Right.
There's something intangible about it. When you like, in skateboarding, we would call people that were just kind of pretending to be a skateboarder a poser. I know you had the word kicker for someone who was
Yeah.
like a wannabe cowboy kind
Right.
of guy. And there's something about designing that you can tell when something's not authentic. I mean, there's a lot of playing cards out there. There's a lot of great playing cards out there. There's also a lot of playing cards where I think somebody just maybe didn't have a lot of passion and just kind of wanted to produce something.
Yeah.
I think there's something you can feel if you're a sensitive, intuitive person. You can tell when something's authentic.
Yeah, and it's or also like it doesn't take very long to see that it's all just real superficial.
Yes, absolutely. Um,
That's another thing that I've really liked about these Don's Early Lights is just the fact that the crew that watches and stuff, they really get to see, because they just, I mean, a lot of times I'm just mumbling and talking, and I'm just like talking through what I'm thinking about and just like that process, and they kind of get to see that and be a part of that.
what I loved was when you did the Lord of the Rings font, the one I watched recently,
Uh-huh.
where you did this font, and at first it just looked like this kind of ridiculous, like just chicken scratch, Lord of the Rings. And then like 5 minutes later, you're like, are you serious? Like you can't believe it got that fleshed out. You know what I'm saying from your first little thumbnails?
Yeah.
Like it just looked so like a child's writing, and then all of a sudden you're seeing this logo, and then you put it on the tuck or the book cover,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get your gold foil out, and then you're like, I'll think about it later. Something's not quite working with it, and then it goes away, and then it goes into paper airplanes.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see a process like that, to be able to be, you're in this Lord of the Rings, something so heavy and serious, and getting gold foil, and then we're going to paper airplanes.
Well, I tell you what, like that really, doing tons of different stuff all at once really helps me kind of like, I mean, it helps me like stay out of kind of ruts a lot as well. Because it's kind of that thing of like, you look at something too long and then you lose it and you can't find it. And then it helps me to just jump. Like if I'm not feeling it, I've learned at this point in my career that if I'm not feeling it, there's no use in me trying to force it. So I just do something different.
It's great that you realize that. For people watching, it's the whole clip joint process. When we started talking about it, and I said, hey, the anniversary's coming up. How cool would that be, a Jackson one? I remember you saying, hey, do you have the art file? I mean, I'm just trying to speak about how you actually work.
Mm-hmm.
So, all your fans can and followers can understand it. And you said, hey, do you have the file? I'd like to see the clip joint. And I said, okay. And I, sent it over the Dropbox, and I hear nothing back. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe he didn't get it. Did he get it? Yeah, I got it. Okay, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he looked at the file and really just didn't like it again. Or, what? I don't know. What's going on? And then, are we going to do it? Yes, we're definitely going to do it. When's the anniversary coming up? Okay. And then we go off and BS about a million other things, and then I'm like, oh, I guess that'll never happen. And then here we are. Yeah. It's like you sit and you think about it and you look at it, and then you get the inspiration and go.
Yeah, because we were talking about, last week we talked about doing a live for a few weeks now.
Yes.
And you were like, well, let's plan it for March. I was like, man, March is like 3 weeks away. I don't think the next 2 days. And then I was like, let's just do it on Monday.
No. Let's tell the truth about this, so I can sound a little bit weaker and more timid than you. Is that I said to Jackson, hey, let's plan it for March, because my birthday's on the 7th, and yours is on the 25th, right? On February.
No, mine's tomorrow.
Tomorrow was that
23rd.
23rd. Okay. And then I said, let's kind of plan it around there. And then Jackson says to me, this is Saturday. He says, let's do it tonight. And I'm in my garage, like, I have like, the ice, everything's melted and everything's frozen here in Texas. Well, it's just unthawing now. And I think, man, I don't know. I gotta put it back. We've been talking about it so long. I have to gather my thoughts and just really all the things we've gone over. How about Monday? Okay, we'll do it on Monday morning. Dawn's really light, but you were ready to go on Saturday.
Yeah. I was like, let's go live now. Let's do it.
Let's do it right now. Let's do it right now. That's always the great way to manipulate you too, Jackson, is you can always kind of West Texas man you up like, are you chicken?
Well, I bet you can't do it.
Yeah, I bet you can't do it. Okay, we'll do it right now.
I like it. I like
It's like
I like the manipulation.
McFly, chicken.
Are you chicken? Yella?
Here's Jackson back in high school. Hey, Jackson, we're going to brawl at 3 o'clock. Why 3? It's lunchtime right now. Let's go.
Let's go now. I would rather eat at lunchtime. Yeah.
We might be dead, but we might be dead by 5.
Yeah. Have I ever told you any stories about my Uncle Dwayne?
No, I don't know Dwayne.
Oh my gosh. What have I been doing with my life? Not telling you stories about Uncle Dwayne.
Now, is Dwayne still here?
No, he died. Dwayne died 4 or 5 years ago. So my dad had
like 20 brothers.
Nine brothers, no sisters. 9 brothers, no sisters. They, my granddad Edred, who Edred the Gizzard deck is at. Edred the Gizzard. They called him Edred the Gizzard. He was a roughneck on the oil fields and a cotton sharecrop farmer. And my dad, they grew up on a cotton farm. And I mean, literally, it's one of those things of like my grandmother Agnes had a bunch of kids for the sole purpose to have more hands on the farm, kind of a thing.
And that was the mentality back then.
Absolutely. And so Dwayne, it was Randall Ray Dwayne. Dwayne was the 3rd oldest of the group. He's probably born, I want to say 43, 42, right? I think no, it'd have been like 46. I think it was right at the very end of World War II. But he was the toughest of all of the brothers. And when I say toughest of all the brothers, my dad played college football. My dad was an offensive line coach, for 35 years. And basically all of my uncles all played, like minus one, all played college football. They were all just like, half of them, were roughnecks too, like their dad, and were either so they were all tough West Texas boys kind of thing.
Were they big guys?
Oh yeah. I mean, huge for their time. But like, I'm 6 foot, my dad's 6'4", and I'm shorter than every single one of my uncles.
But can they draw a clip joint?
They cannot draw a cup joint.
Okay.
So Dwayne, he was the craziest of them all. I'm gonna tell you 2 Dwayne stories.
Great, I love it.
And you're gonna be like, oh, that's an exaggeration. Nope, it's like none of this is an exaggeration because like I corroborated different sources and got the same story. So there was a time where in the little town where my dad grew up in Crosby, Texas, outside of Lubbock, there was a bus stop, okay? And one day, Dwayne was coming back from the oil fields, and at the bus stop was this little old lady, and she had her suitcase. And the bus pulls up to stop, and then the bus driver just opens the door for the little old lady. Doesn't get up, doesn't help her with her bags. And Uncle Dwayne sees this happen. Dwayne goes over to the bus, drags the bus driver out, and he whips his tail right there in front of the little old lady.
But did he ask him first, like, hey, why don't you help her?
No, he's already saw it. He doesn't need to ask him. He saw it. So drags him out, whips the guy's tail right there, and then helps the lady on the bus. For the next 2 weeks, Dwayne comes back to the bus stop at the same time, and every day grabs this guy and whips him for 2 weeks.
What the heck?
And then to the point of where the bus stopped stopping at that stop.
What the heck? Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Well, why would he keep going back? Do you think that was like an escape from like that he had like a rough life or something? Or
No, there's no escape. He just wanted to teach that bus driver a lesson.
And who was the bus driver?
I had no idea. But, okay, second story, which this is my favorite. This is my favorite Uncle Dwayne story of all time. So I can't remember what exactly kind of truck it was. I think it was probably a 54 Ford pickup or something. Those the iconic Ford pickups from the 50s. And it was Dwayne's truck, and Dwayne loved that truck. One day, the younger brother Dale, one of the younger brother Dales, takes Dwayne's truck without asking, and they go to Rawls, Texas, which is like the neighboring city that was the rival city of Crosbyton. So like rival high school football, that kind of thing. Texas high school football, serious stuff. So they go to Rawls, Texas, and Dale is in Dwayne's truck, and they're at this other town in Rawls, and they're doing the drag in Rawls. And then the football players from the other football team see the truck, and then they kind of run Dale out of town in the truck. And they kind of come back, and Dwayne finds out that Dale stole his truck and took it into Rawls. And, Dale kind of fesses up. He's like, yeah, man, I'm sorry. I took your truck. And he kind of was telling the story, what happened. Yeah, we went to Rawls, and, some of the Rawls football players were there, and they kind of ran us out of town. And then Dwayne was like, whoa. What? Repeat that part of the story. And he's like, yeah, we went to Rawls. Sorry, Dwayne, I stole your truck. I'm sorry I stole your truck. We went to Rawls, and some of the Rawls football players were there, and they ran us out of town. Without even thinking about it, Dwayne says, get in the truck, let's go. And then Dale was like, you're not mad? You're not mad about me stealing a truck? He's like, no, I don't care about that. And he's like, well, then what's wrong? Because he can see that Dwayne's furious. And he's like, what's wrong? And he was like, here's what happened. You went to Rawls in my truck, and the Rawls football boys ran who they think is me in my truck out of town. And he was like, we're going back right now and making sure this is settled. And so they go back to Rawls, and they hook up with the football players, and there's like 6 or 7 of them, and there's like maybe three guys with my Uncle Dwayne. And he was like, all right, you boys, I just want to make sure you boys know that wasn't me. That was my little brother that stole my truck. You didn't run me out of town. And so they said, we're going to fight right now. And Dwayne was like, I'm going to fight every single one of you, and I'm going to take it one at a time. And basically the 3 guys that were there to referee this fight, to make sure that the Rawls boys would just fight Dwayne one at a time. And he ends up going through them all.
And what happened? How long did it go for?
As long as it took to whip all 7 guys, but he wanted to make sure that they knew that they didn't run him out of town.
And then what happened to Dwayne, like later in life? What did he do? Did he continue working in the oil fields?
Yeah, he was kind of like, I don't know, there's a term for it, but he was a guy for a long time. He was just a salesman, because he could sell anything, this guy. And then later on in life, he ended up becoming kind of a guy. He was the guy that would, scope out land, and he would do tests and stuff like that. And he would be the guy that would decide whether or not the land had oil to dig. So he was kind of like the speculator to find out if there was oil there or not before the oil company came in to tap a well. There was another story. I'll go ahead and tell you another story. When he was getting his first job in the oil business, there's a university here called in Texas called Texas A&M University.
Yeah,
and
College Station.
Yeah, and Texas A&M is huge for like agricultural engineering, that kind of stuff. Huge. Yes. And basically, if you lived in Texas, especially West Texas, if you lived in West Texas and you were in the oil business, like 75% of the people, especially like the engineering side, were people from, A&M kind of a thing.
Same with freeway planning.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then when and Dwayne, he dropped out of college and that kind of thing. And uh, when he was getting his first job in the oil business, uh, the guy that he was in his interview, and before him was a newly graduated A&M engineer that had just came before him. And this was kind of like for a sales job type thing. Not necessarily for an engineering job, but for sales. And Dwayne was older, college dropout. He's in this office of this business guy, this West Texas oil guy. And he's like, Dwayne, I need you to tell me why I need to hire you instead of that, that highly qualified, guy that was just in here before he graduate. What? Are you laughing?
Yeah, I'm laughing because I'm just imagining this guy.
Yeah, he's like, why do I need to hire you, and why should I hire you and not that college graduate? And then all Dwayne said was this, and excuse my language. He goes, well, I'll tell you this: if you're neck high in horse shit, I can sell you another foot. Yeah.
Dwayne got the job?
He got the job. And that's kind of what started. Yeah.
Did Dwayne get married and have kids?
Yeah, he did.
How many kids did he have?
One, two, I think two. Kirk.
Boys and girls?
Kirk and Cork was a boy, and then Whitney was a girl.
Now, was Dwayne a soft, cuddly father?
I don't think so.
It's always interesting to see, like, that's why I ask, is those sides, like Sonny Liston, the boxer, who was like before, he was the one that Ali beat in that kind of shill fight.
Right.
But Sonny Liston's one of the, like, he was Mike Tyson before Mike Tyson.
Right.
And Sonny Liston's job was he was a debt collector for the mafia.
Oh man!
If you didn't pay someone back, you'd open the door and have this bull shark of a man just swinging at you.
Jeez.
And they all said that when Sonny Liston would go home, he was like the greatest father, and he was cuddling his kids, and he would go to their baseball games, and he would show all of his affection to his kids. But then, when he was collecting debts, it was like, a death sentence.
Jeez.
Just like, the split personality of those people. Like if you ever meet like someone who was like a crime person or something, some of them have that side where you talk to people who are in their family, they're like, oh, they're the greatest guy, they're so cuddly, but then you look at their life and you're like, wow, it's interesting. That's why I asked about Dwayne.
That's it. Like, was it Breaking Bad, the Heisenberg miss?
Yeah, that's right. Like the split personality.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
Did you like Breaking Bad?
I did. I liked Breaking Bad.
That was one of the last shows that I really got into. I don't really watch much television, but that show was just fine art.
Yeah, it was very, very good.
Do you know that Breaking Bad was supposed to be set in Riverside, California?
Really?
And for anyone that is from California or knows, that Riverside always has that kind of stereotypical image of just kind of like I don't know, out in the desert there's like a lot of trailers that catch on fire from methamphetamine cooking. And North San Diego County used to be like that too. San Marcos, which is now like a Frisco, used to be like the meth capital of the world, where you'd have trailers catching on fire. Now it's like $800,000 homes.
Yeah.
But they went to Riverside and told them they wanted to film this show there, and the Riverside County basically said like there's no tax breaks, there's no incentives, because California is very, very difficult to do business in.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, fine. And Albuquerque said, we'll do what you want. We'll give you any filming permits. We'd love to have you here. And there you go.
Wow, that's cool.
It's interesting, like to think about the show is so intrinsic to Albuquerque.
Oh yeah. In there, don't a lot of people go to Albuquerque now for the Breaking Bad kind of meccas type thing?
Absolutely. There was a tour place, and there's a candy shop that would make blue ice or whatever, that stuff.
Yeah.
They make candy that's blue like that and sell it. And they were talking about how much money comes into Albuquerque from people. I don't know now, but people wanted to see Breaking Bad locations.
Wow.
You know what this looks like? When you look, it almost looks like a Rorschach now. Like
yeah,
it looks like when you
drop
ink on like a wet page. Mm-hmm. It has like that. I mean, it's one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
It's coming together for sure already.
Basically, what I can say about this deck is if I really hated you, I would still have to say it's a great deck.
That's good.
If I was
That's
really
good.
not a fan, I would just have to man up and say this is just unbelievable.
But you don't hate me.
Are you kidding? I'm in love with you. I don't hate anybody, especially someone that I would work with.
Yeah.
Could you imagine, people that have to go to work every day and deal with like a horrible boss or like people that they don't like? I mean, life's too short for that.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Just try to enjoy stuff.
Yeah. I always thought it was interesting. You know, um, a good barometer. Well, it's my own experiences, but a good barometer of if somebody has. I don't want to say happy because I think that that's so. I mean, there's a lot of facets to that, but like if you are like always working hard and like, oh, I can't wait till Friday. TGIF, it's Friday. I love that it's Friday. Like if you're in a job where you rush and look forward to Fridays and look forward to the weekends, then you probably should. It's not 100%, but you should probably more than likely think about finding another job.
That's a great point.
Like if you just think about how much time you waste of your life, if 5 days a week the only thing that you're doing is trying to rush to the end of the week to get to the weekend, and then and that's why everybody hates Mondays too. And I think that's the same thing. Like if you find someone that hates Mondays, you more than likely they hate their job or their life.
I couldn't even sleep last night, and today's Monday, right? I mean, I was like, I couldn't wait for the morning.
Yeah, and like most of the time, I don't even know what day it is.
I don't either. Like, I'll have an appointment scheduled, and I'll have to ask my wife, is it really Wednesday? Because I think it's Monday. I've always been bad with days.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I'm always like really punctual and on time, and I'm never gonna like screw you over and show up late. But like on random things, I don't really know time that well like that. About that stuff. Like I have a friend who was asking me. He said, "Hey, when you retire, when you get old, where are you going to move to?" I want to move to wine country in Napa. I'm going to save all my money and maybe get a place in Sonoma and go tour the wineries. And I said, "Are you kidding? Like, what? Why not just go do that now? I mean, who knows? When you're 70, they might burn down. They might not even have Napa.
Yeah.
Go do it now." And they're like, "Yeah, well, I just want to kind of plan it out to retire." And I'll tell you, my grandma has a twin brother, Jimmy Kilpatrick. He's 6'5", maybe 260. He worked in meat packing at Pacific Meat, and he carried carcasses around all day on his back. Jimmy could lift, like my dad always said, yeah, Jimmy was the nicest guy, but you never wanted to mess with him because Jimmy, what he carried all day long. I mean, what could he do to you?
Yeah, exactly.
He was just a gnarly, nicest guy. He's like a big, loving, he would like see kids in the street and give them $2. He was just like the greatest guy. But Jimmy, worked his whole life at this meat plant. He became like a union head guy back when, like, the union guy really wanted to like help his fellow. He was one of the workers too. He wasn't like,
right.
What you think of as a corrupt union guy. But Jimmy waited his whole life with his wife Vi that they were going to tour the world, and they had all these plans. And Jimmy retired at 70, and 6 months into retirement, he died.
Yeah.
And Violet, his wife, my great aunt, she's still alive. She's like 95 years old, and she always says to me, Jimmy had so many plans. We were going to tour the world, and I did all those cruises with my girlfriends.
Yeah. What's that saying? Like,
testament. Don't wait.
Don't spend your whole life saving up to then live the last. Don't spend like 50 years of your life saving up to live the last 10 or 15 the way you want to.
Yes. Well, when you probably won't even want to. It's like, who knows? Like some people when they get older, they really do a lot and stay active, and then other people get older and they just kind of lose interest or lose their drive. Like I read this article about Pittsburgh, people who worked in steel factories.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about how the average lifespan post-retirement, I think the max out was like 2 years. And these people were like human machines. They worked so hard all day long, and then they would retire. And they said they would, just drink beer and kind of watch TV.
Yeah.
And it was almost like the machine shutting down. It was
absolutely.
I love the city of Pittsburgh, and I love the history. And like you read about it, and you're like, what a horrible, sad story.
Yeah, that's the one thing that just like, it's almost like you set this clock.
That's right.
You set this clock, and as soon as okay, I'm done working. Like, because I feel like we were designed and created to work and make and do stuff. And when we stop that, well, our bodies are just like, oh, okay, we're done. We're just going to shut this off.
Absolutely. It's or even not even working, but having ideas or like people always tell me, oh, I'm so bored, or I can't wait till next year. This has been a horrible year, or I'm just really never bored. I don't want to sound like a pompous idiot, but I'm just not a bored
Mm-hmm.
guy. Like I want to get into like sneaker design. I'll look at like the history of sneaker designers.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, you talking about Linedecker. I'm up for like an hour looking at all of his old pictures, and I'm looking at
Mm-hmm.
Rockwell and thinking about what Rockwell's inspiration on the Saturday Morning Post was. There's just always something that kind of interests me, even if like I'll just talk to a guy who works in an oil field. What's it like to be a roughneck? What is it? I just want to know.
Yeah.
Like life is so massive. There's always something to be interested in.
Yes. I concur.
It's crazy. Like when I was like going to college, I got a job as a video deposition guy.
Wow.
Recording video depositions for court cases.
Did you get
And
some
it was like
interesting stuff?
What's that?
Did you see some interesting stuff?
Oh yeah, I mean some of the stuff. I mean it was a horrible job. The people that owned the company were just horrible. I mean they were making like $200 an hour for us, and we were getting paid like 15, and
Oof.
just a horrible work environment. But I had to do it to pay bills while I was in college. And you'd just get like every day you'd come in and they'd be like, okay, you're going to downtown LA and the U.S. Bank building. I'm really afraid of heights. It's my only real fear.
Oh wow.
And they put me for this deposition. The U.S. Bank building, which was
Yeah.
the first interstate building. It was the tallest building. I think the Korea Air building now will be. But the U.S. Bank is that monumental building in downtown LA.
Right. Is that the one with like the circular thing is blown up in Independence Day?
Yeah, it's like it's a circle at the top.
Yeah.
And you go in there and you go to one elevator goes from floor 1 to 15. Then you get off. Then you have to go to a separate elevator. I think after 9/11 they changed it to where not one elevator goes all the way up.
Right.
And you would go in one elevator in this until I get to the very top, and they say you're going to be right there.
Wow.
They put me against the window, and there's like a lawyer table there, and I'm like just shaking.
Oh man.
I can't not do the job, so I'm just like. And I look back and see the cars down there, and I feel like I'm just, the end of my life is happening. And, the camera doesn't work. There's like a fundamental problem with the camera, and I'm calling the boss from like their phone, and the camera, faulted out. And I just thought, man, thank you. Whoever did that, thank you so much. I got But you would just hear so many crazy stories about life and facets. And what you learned is the conniving nature of people. Like the lawyers, like when you would break for lunch, the lawyers would get you in the elevator, to go for lunch, right?
Right.
And they would say to you, hey, did you hear Mike, the witness talking? And then you'd be like, yeah, of course, I'm recording it. Didn't you think it sounded funny when he said that he didn't go to the store that night? And then if you said like yes, they would subpoena you and have you be as a witness.
Yeesh.
They would like try to involve you. So like you were taught early on, just don't talk to anyone and just say you didn't know. So they would always say, hey, did you think Sarah seemed credible? And I would say, I don't know. I was focused on the camera. Oof. And it was like a film noir. You were always thinking you were going to be pulled into some trap.
Yeah.
Did you do any jobs during college?
Yes. I drove a school bus.
Are you kidding?
I drove a school bus through college.
Is that Denton? The Denton area?
Denton ISD.
Where they filmed Benji.
Yep. The first Benji in the 70s.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, I drove a school bus.
What was that like?
I won't do it again.
What's that?
I won't do it again.
I always think of the end of Ferris Bueller, where the principal's getting on the bus.
Yeah.
Remember that? And the kid says, "I have some gummy bears. They're nice and warm from my pocket."
Yeah. I think there's always a lesson to learn, and I'm so glad I did it because now I can, drive. I can parallel park a big truck.
I don't know if I could ever do that.
Because I remember that was the hardest thing. The whole thing was for the driving test for the CDL that we had to get.
Oh, it's very hard.
We had to literally parallel park a school bus.
when you were moving to Tennessee, I remember asking you how are you going to do it, and you said I love driving big trucks. I
Oh
want to
yeah.
drive the truck myself.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not like a fifth wheel, but I love driving big box trucks and stuff like that for sure.
It's crazy. I don't. I drove like a U-Haul towing a Dodge Challenger from California to Austin, and it was fun being with my buddy, and going through like Las Cruces, New Mexico, and getting
Mm-hmm.
that great, green and red chili, food and stuff.
Yeah.
But the driving part of it, I just did not like driving a large vehicle.
Yeah. Bro, this back design is pretty awesome.
It's freaking killer. Did you imagine it would be this good though?
No, no. I mean, I knew it was going to be cool just from the stuff that we were going to put into it, but it's turning out really interesting.
Like for everyone out there, like I sent Jackson, like I use all Mac stuff. I always have. My dad has had a Mac since we had the first Mac in '84. I've only ever used Macs. I have Pages. Everyone uses Windows, but I put together this ghetto document of like just my ideas, like for Jackson in here. And like I sent it to Jackson, and I was like kind of nervous. I'm like thinking, man, is he gonna see this and think is this guy on LSD or what? And so I text Jackson, did you get it? And he's like, yeah, I got it. I'm like, okay. Is it horrible? Is it possible? And then Jackson says, anything's possible.
Yeah. And I did watch it. I had to go on my laptop and look at it.
Oh, and you did look at it.
I did. Yeah,
What was your
anything's
first
possible.
thought when you looked at it?
I just knew. I was like, oh crap! He wants to do all this stuff in one card. Let's put a skull and a moth and another skull and another skull, and we'll use Masonic triangles, and we'll do another city skyline of Los Angeles.
Oh man, it's when this is all done and released, we have to release like the MP4, the QuickTime MP4s of like the Tuck case. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, that'll be good.
And I don't want to give anything away. I really want the Tuck people to like look at it and say like, oh, that's crazy. But like, there's elements of it that like have kind of a period element to it. And you look at it, and I was joking to Jackson, and I said, if there was a vehicle in the background, what year would it be from? And Jackson says, don't worry, all the source material I looked at is correct. If there was kind of a vehicle in it, it would be source correct. I can't give anything away. Dude, look at this.
Yeah,
it gets better every second.
it's coming. It's coming together.
It's really a mind,
Mm-hmm.
trip. Look at this. It's unbelievable to watch you work too. Like I don't. What's the fat? Like, how long did Federal 52 take you to do?
It was definitely the longest. It took about a month.
Gee, a month. I've worked on decks for a year.
Oh, that's
That's
crazy.
how amazing you are at speed. It's unbelievable.
It's honestly not. I think that it was born out of just me knowing myself and the fact that I get so distracted so easily that if I don't finish it, if I don't just blast through it and finish it, that I would rather have something finished that may not be, crazy awesome or the best thing ever, or my magnum opus. I would rather have something finished and in the world and worked through it than just not have to have done anything.
There's a lot of truth in that. I mean, I've worked on a lot of projects that never saw the light of day, and like it was over a lot of kind of perfectionist, idiocy on
Mm-hmm.
my part and other people I've worked with part. And you think about it, it might have just been better to finish it.
Yeah. I think seeking perfection is the one biggest hinderer of artists.
I agree with you because I have that tendency, and I'm going to confess to everybody here. When Jackson told me, he said, "Let's do the clip joint back." Look at that shape. Like, look at that shape, though. That is perfect. When Jackson said we're going to do this live, my first inclination is there's no way in HELL I'm doing that. There's just no way. Like I'm a very kind of private guy. I don't really like creative processes or ideas out until the project is out. And also I come from that age like of D&D back in the magic industry where we were super secretive, especially 2008, 2009. Like you couldn't. It was really like that old kind of code of like you didn't want anyone else to know what you're working on. The magic industry. And then I talked to my wife, who's usually the brains of the bunch, if you know us. And she said, are you an idiot? Are you crazy? You have Jackson wanting to do this with you. and wanting to do it live. People are into this. Don't you know the modern world? And I said, no, I don't, honey. I live in 1946. You know this. And
Yeah.
she said, I watch all these makeup people on YouTube, and they freaking document their everything, and it's
Mm.
fascinating, and I love looking at their work. And so I thought, well, I guess I really am being, stupid. And
I,
now this has been one of the most enjoyable experiences.
I think one thing that I've learned,
Look at that.
I think that just from my own experiences, and all these things that I'm saying are just my own experiences, so take it with a grain of salt. But like, there's a lot especially in the playing card world, there's a lot of like this secrecy and like, oh, this is, no one, this is a industry first and no one's ever done this. And,
Hey, are you trying to imitate me, Jackson?
no, this is not you. No, this is not you. But it's just like, I call it feature creeping. And
Wait, feature creeping?
feature creeping. It's a word that we use in the gaming industry where like you're designing a game and then you're like, oh, you have a character and he's got a gun. Okay, say he's got a gun in his hand. And a good example of a feature creep would be like, oh, wouldn't it be cool? Like someone in a meeting is like, wouldn't it be cool if, as if he was standing there, he would like twirl the gun just as like a fidget type thing. And so that idea, that idea of like, oh, hey, wouldn't it be cool to have his gun flip, turns into like a month's worth of work for like animators, coders, artists to like, for the coders to create the ability for the gun to flip, for the animators to animate the gun flipping, for the artists to actually paint a gun, all this kind of thing. And it's feature creeping to where it's super cool, but it really doesn't add to the story. It may add a little bit to the character, but it doesn't in the grand scheme of things. You could have like a cool gun flip in your game, but you could have a horrible game, like overall game mechanic, and then your game is worthless. And I see that a lot with playing card design is like they'll feature creep of like, oh, we have this new colored ink that's glow in the dark, or an artist will like, I do foil and this is the only thing I do, and every deck that I do is has this similar kind of court cards, and I do the same kind of foiling, or this is my only kind of style that I work in, and I'm going to keep it secret and I'm not going to let anybody know. Like I like being wide open, and I like the fact that there's tons of different playing card designers, because for me, if what you're basing your staying power as an artist is your art and the execution of the art, then it doesn't matter what cool trinket novelty thing that you're doing, whether it's holographic foil, or ink that like spells your name if you rub it really hard with your thumb. But just like, it's just, everybody's just so caught up with like, oh, I'm the only one that's doing this, and it's and the story is usually, no, you're not. There's probably somebody else who's been doing it for a long time in a different industry.
Yeah.
But it's just like they hang their hat on these trinket novelties, and when you should be worried about creating the best execution of the art that you can. And if you stripped all that stuff away, all your fancy glitz and shine, if you stripped all that stuff away, would you still have an interesting story? Would you have beautiful art, kind of a thing?
Very, very true.
I don't even know what got me on that.
It's very, very true, though. The playing card industry, I've watched it, from not even knowing that you could make your own custom playing card. I mean, I come from the era where I would be going with Dan and Dave in 2002 or 3 to Costco.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be using their mom's Costco card.
Your mom, it's the brand names. Your mom's Costco cards.
What's that?
I was just making a joke. It's the brand name is your mom's Costco cards.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was like that. It was we'd go in there, and they would get a brick of bicycles, and they wanted all blue at the time. So we would kind of sneak and open the brick and then pull out the 6 red and then swap them to get a full blue brick.
Yeah.
And I had never thought about playing card color in my life. I had never even known that there was really color. I mean, I said like, well, why do you want this? And they had some kind of idea that they wanted that. And I mean, this is like the beginning of it, you know? And then you look at Chris Kenner would give, you know, Dan and Dave Jerry's Nuggets, and I would be seeing them, and Dave would throw them in the trash after they hit the ground.
Yeah.
And just you look at the morphing of it, and then, you know, one day Dan and Dave saying, hey, we're going to make our own deck. And I'm just joking, saying, okay, well, make one black, one white, call them smoke and mirrors. It fits with Magic, you know.
Yeah.
And then you see the product, and just like watching the whole industry kind of birth out of these experiences. What a weird like path in life, you know, to be working in an Apple store with Dave Buck, then being a photography and film student,
Yeah.
wanting to take photos, taking photos of your friend doing stuff with cards that you don't even know what it's called.
Yeah.
And then this kind of industry flows out of it. It's a weird trip. Like, what if I never worked at that store? We wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. And if you didn't work at that Mac store.
No, and it was like R004 was one of the first Apple stores around. And, you know, Dave just kind of wandered in from Sonora, California, this kind of mining town up in the middle of nowhere in Northern California. And just what if I didn't talk to him that day? What if we never, you know, really got a chance to talk? What if we had opposing schedules?
Yeah. Yeah,
you know?
it's
so much of our inspiration, you know, even now we'll talk about like stuff that we're doing, and so much of it came from talks that were 20 years ago. It makes me wonder, do we change that much? Or like, you know, some of us like me, I just had the same interest for so long. People will talk to me from grade school and say, oh yeah, you were into that then.
Yeah. Well, I think everything happens for a reason, for sure.
I think it does. I think you know who Edgar Casey is?
No, I do not.
Edgar Casey is really interesting. He's like half quack kind of psychic guy. He had like the dowel rods, and he would be able to find oil.
Oh yeah.
And he could find like with water witching and stuff. And he was like a pseudo psychic, and he would have people come to his house in the South where he lived, and he would do psychic readings for them. But he really like legitimately found oil.
No, it's a legit thing for sure.
Oh, well, you would know. I mean, you know that industry. But if you look up Edgar Casey, he kind of became like you know, like what you'd call like a goofy psychic, like a total nonsense thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of what he said was true, and a lot of it's interesting. Like, was it a hack, or did he know something? So the question was, well, Edgar, if you can find all this oil for other people, why can't you do it for yourself? And he said that the universe doesn't work that way.
Wow.
That when you have a selfish interest, you're not given the gift.
You
can find it for other people. You know, and I always thought, well, that's interesting. But he talked about this theory called the unified field, you know, the unified field of information, that all information and experiences were kind of existing already in this bubble, and that we kind of tapped into this unified field of information. And I think there's something to it. Like, we have these, we'll talk to someone and we'll have deja vu, or we'll have these kind of full circle experiences, and you can just say it's coincidental, or you can say maybe it's something we don't understand.
Huh.
He fascinates me because when you look at Edgar Casey, you're like, oh yeah, he's a quack. But then you read more, you're like, was he a quack? Like, yeah, half quack for sure, but was it just chance that he knew that, or
yeah,
law of averages? I don't know. Do you have like the same interests from when you're a child?
Yes, I do.
Like Lego, right?
Like Lego. Mm-hmm.
Drawing Lego. So if someone talked to you from that knew you when you were in 3rd grade, would they say, "Oh, that's Jackson"?
I think they would. And I think that I think you can, even if it's something different, I think that you know, it may have been Legos when I was a kid, but I think that those kind of attachments, those kind of attachment threads to that kind of stuff of creating stuff with your hands can, like, you know, can be seen in the stuff that I like now.
It's very interesting. You know, and especially when you have kids, you look at their personalities when they're 2 or 3, and you wonder, am I going to be looking at them when they're 30 and see, oh, yeah, that's them. That's their personality.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can even see that now with my kids, you know, like my oldest, you know, just being like, you know, 11, just seeing how, thinking back thinking back to things when she was a kid, when she was a baby, just like the things that she did and how they've translated now into who she is now.
It's interesting. My dad always says to me, he says, there's one memory of you that was when you were like 2 years old or a year and a half. You went in my toolbox and you got a screwdriver and you were walking around the house with it. And I said, there's no way you can have that. He's going to poke his eye out. So we took it from you and you flipped out and you flipped the switch and you screamed.
Oh
And you
no.
started bawling and you kept saying ad diver, which, is how I said screwdriver.
Yeah.
And so he got out his old VHS video recorder and started recording it. And I think it was a video of me. And my dad said, we thought it was going to go on for maybe 5 minutes, but he said it's 2 hours straight
Oh man, really?
of just saying ad diver, and you just wouldn't give in. You just would never give in, and we couldn't distract you, and it just went on, and then it goes on 3 hours, and he's like, "You've never changed. You can't let something go. Once you get an idea, it's like a pit bull. You just have it in your head. You just have to go. You have to get it done. And it's like you wonder, we're all just kind of come like nature versus nurture. We're just all born this certain way. Like you have a real can-do attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Like you say, yeah, sure, we can do that. And like I'm like that too. Like, yeah, let's do it. Let's see. It's not impossible. And then you meet some people and they're like, nope, can't do it. Nope, impossible.
Yeah.
Look how beautiful that shape is. Just unbelievable. Do you like the improvements over the years to Photoshop and Illustrator?
Yeah. But it's kind of one of those things of like, yes, to answer your question. However, like, I mean, I do consider myself, what you would call like a power user. Like, I know a lot about Photoshop just because of the amount of time that I spend in it.
Sure.
But at the same time, like, I only know how to do the things like the shortcut keys and stuff like that. I just know how to do what helps me do what I already like my drawing. And I've learned the things that I've learned about Photoshop just from, okay, how do I use this tool to like do my drawing the style that I like and that kind of thing.
Now why don't you use Illustrator?
I don't use Illustrator. I do use Illustrator for certain decks that, are, a little bit more graphic, that I don't have to do illustrative type stuff. And when I say illustrative type stuff, and that's the thing that's funny, is that it's called Illustrator, but I don't use it because I like using Photoshop when I'm doing more illustrative stuff, because you can't, in my opinion, you can't, and there are people that can do great things with Illustrator, but in my opinion, with me and my own style, I can't get the finesse of like the pressure of my hand in the line and making it look old and making it look like engravings. I can't get that with Illustrator.
Do you think that most people are like you though and drawn to Photoshop? I would think that most drawn to Illustrator.
Yeah, like it, I laugh in my inside. I laugh when I hear people getting interviewed of like how to become a playing card designer, or what do you have to do to become a playing card designer. And then like when they say, well, what program do you use? And they're like, well, you have to use Illustrator. And like they have this preconceived idea that everybody designs playing cards in Illustrator, which a lot of people do. The majority of the playing card designers do. But I'm just like, nah, bro, you're missing out, man. You're missing out.
It's interesting. I remember that I think Dan Buck and I were recently talking about it, that we used to submit the files to USPCC and Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
They're Photoshop files.
That's that.
Dan was just saying like how long ago that was.
Yeah. Every day, every file, basically 9 out of 10 file that I submit to anybody is a Photoshop file, a layered Photoshop file, and it's got all the cards in one big file.
That's awesome. Well, it's like, I've used Photoshop for so long just as a photographer, and then people say, well, you must be like a real expert at like swapping heads and stuff. And it's like, I've never done that. I just use it. You just use these things for what you do. So I use Photoshop for typically cleanup and then just level adjustment, and things like that. I was never a big like kind of gimmick guy. I never really liked photo gimmicks.
Yeah.
You'd always get that. Like, I mean, for my wife and I shot so many weddings for like 10 years, and
Mm-hmm.
we'd always get people like, hey, can you do something funny and swap my mom's head and my dad's head? And you'd be like, okay, I mean, you're the client, sure, we can do it. But
It's $5,000. I'm just kidding.
What's that? Yeah, $20,000, please. But it was like, do you really want this? It's kind of silly. People see technology and they always want to know what they can kind of do with it, like as a gimmick thing.
Yeah. And I think at the same time, a lot of people, and especially a lot of playing card designers now, it's almost like a crutch to where, oh, I got to use Illustrator, or I got to do this, I got to do this or that. And their creative process starts with the limitations that they're putting on themselves from the get-go with software.
Great point.
Which is just a stupid, which is, the software is just a stupid tool that you should be able to bend to your will to get what you want. And that's all it should be. And if it becomes anything other than that, then you're letting the software dictate your creative process.
Which it does.
Mm-hmm.
It can. Martin Scorsese, who I really, admire just even as a thinker in terms of cinematic arts, when you hear what he said, someone said, do you storyboard? And he said, yeah, I do these really horrible looking sketches, but cinematographers love them because I'm not dictating every single inch of the frame. I'm just giving them a guideline to access their creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought that was the best way. Like when I've worked with so many artists, I always give them kind of a really horrible looking kind of sketch, because you don't want to just tell them, okay, that goes exactly there. No, Jackson, the Death's Head Moth goes exactly there. Because then what's the point of working with someone?
Right.
No one in the creative fields want to be told exactly. The reason we're in the creative arts is because we don't like to be told what to do.
Yeah, and the reason why I don't work for a studio anymore is because if I'm drawing pictures, I don't want to draw pictures that other people tell me to draw.
Yeah, it's like the fundamental personality of the arts is people who don't want to do the norm. Well, that's what it should be. I mean, anyway, really.
Yeah. And I feel blessed too, because I know that it's not like that for everybody, especially even people in creative industries.
It's hard, dude. How do you do it? I mean, you have to have this culmination of skills and kind of luck, and it's like very few people can do what you do. Where, remember Dan Buck said to me one time, he said, you know what the genius of Jackson Robinson is that he's eliminated the highest cost of the playing card business, which is art fees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have to pay anybody.
It was like Dan Buck's like, he's like, I wish I had the ability to just sit there and draw a whole deck. I wouldn't have to look at my balance sheet at the end of the year and see what I paid.
Yeah. Let me see here.
I love that.
Bone. Let's see here. Let's see. Human. How do you spell femur?
That steak looks good.
I know. I had me a steak a couple of nights ago.
So have you gone back to kind of eating meat more?
Oh, yeah. How do you spell femur? I don't know how you spell femur.
Femur.
Huh?
Femur.
Femur.
We don't want to look up a human fetus. I
No.
don't think, right?
No, we don't. I don't know why I'm looking this up. I can draw a bone. It's not my first bone drawing rodeo.
Hey, you said you've been to Disneyland. You've ridden the Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
Right.
You know what can set me off, like where my wife has to restrain me, is when I'm a big Disneyland guy, or I was when I lived. I mean, I went like a week every week,
mm-hmm.
and the Pirates of the Caribbean ride was always like such a meditative experience for me. I would really just sit silently.
Loved
and
it.
Stare. Right?
Yeah.
Like the old man that's smoking on the kind of bayou.
Yep.
I always, even since I was a kid, I'd be like, oh my God, that's me. That's like my fantasy. I love this guy. And then now when you go on the ride, people just talk. People can't focus for the 15 minutes, and they have to talk on it, and they have to use their camera.
Yeah. And they changed it too. When they came out the movie, they revamped it.
Yes, with Jack Sparrow.
Yeah. I remember probably one of, it's amazing the memories that you remember. And I remember that because one of my favorite inspirational illustrators is N.C. Wyeth.
Oh yes.
And he did all this kind of stuff with like Treasure Island and Last of the Mohicans, all kind, Robin Hood. But I remember, and I don't know, I don't think that he was the one that did this, but I just remember it because it was very, very similar style. But I remember waiting in line. I liked riding the Pirates of the Caribbean. I loved the ride, but the thing that I liked most about riding Pirates of the Caribbean was waiting in line. Because when you waited in line, they had those big murals all over the walls of the
Yes.
inside. And they were like those old N.C. Wyeth style paintings of pirates and stuff like that. And I would just go and ride it over. And like my parents would, I wouldn't do this now with my kids, but my parents would just, let us go. My brother and I go by ourselves and just go
Was
the
this
whole
Disney
park.
World or Disneyland?
Huh?
Was this Disneyland or Disney World?
No, this is Disneyland.
Oh, okay.
And we'd go, and I remember I would just ride Pirates of the Caribbean over and over again just to wait in the line to go look at those old paintings on the walls
Did
of
they
them.
have like their name underneath them, like for the pirates?
Yeah, yeah. And like the banners and the scrolls and stuff. Ugh.
I love that too. I mean, even like last year, a year ago, I was there and I was looking at like, it's funny, I was looking at that and I was looking at their names.
Yeah. And on top of that, like you remember that the skeleton at the very end that's like a real skeleton?
Oh yeah.
The one that's like sitting there on the bed dead, like that's how it was an old story about how that's an actual real skeleton.
Is that really a skeleton?
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea.
At least that's the stories that I've read.
The big Disneyland myth was that Walt Disney's ashes were in the haunted mansion, and then the other one is that there was like a wheelchair that's like parked in the corner that was Walt's at the end of his life,
Huh.
which I think both are complete nonsense. But growing up, you would just hear that all the time.
Yeah.
I actually met someone who threw their relative's ashes over the balcony in the haunted mansion,
Oh wow.
and that was like their wish was to have their. And of course, you can't do any of this. But someone had told me whether it's true or not, I don't know. But they had put part of their loved one in the haunted mansion.
Jeez.
You wonder what's really there. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Disney World though?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I've never been. Is it great?
It is great. It's absolutely great. Um, there is a nostalgia of Disneyland for me because I remember when we had we had some relatives that lived in Mission Viejo.
Oh, are they still there?
No, they live in Lubbock now. Actually,
Oh, okay.
remember that? Remember that my granddad's brother that was the magician?
Yes.
It was his kids that lived there, and they were my parents' age, and they lived in Mission Viejo. And I remember that we would always make these, from Canyon, Amarillo, Texas. We'd take I-40 and go all the way to drive all the way to California all the time,
Oh, wow.
and we would go to Disneyland. Um, we'd go to Disneyland, and I remember just having those kind of sentimental things with Disneyland of like the Pirates of the Caribbean. And then when we lived in Westchester, when I was working for that game company in Marina Del Rey, um, we you know my wife hasn't worked since I've been an artist, and she's been home with our kids. And when we lived there, we just had Claire, our youngest, and we bought, the best money we spent was buying that season ticket. And they would go, they'd go on like a day of the week, and they knew all the backs, ins and outs of Disneyland, and they could, get places really quickly and all the shortcuts, and they'd go for like 2 or 3 hours and ride the rides they wanted. It wasn't like they were traveling across the country, and then
Yes.
you gotta get all the rides in, so you stay all day and you're zonked and you hate life by the end of the day. They'd stay for a couple of hours and ride the rides and just have the best time. And so it
Well,
was, it was
back then, you could do that for two reasons. Parking wasn't $20. You
yeah,
could park at California Adventure, and it was, or I mean, at Downtown Disney for free.
yeah,
And the crowds weren't intense. I mean, I remember back in that era, as a resident, you would get a free pass for your birthday to go to Disneyland because they were making so little money. They had such little earnings that they needed to drive traffic.
really,
If you can imagine this. So every year, everyone in our zip codes area would get a free birthday pass. And my mom, who doesn't like Disneyland and hasn't been for years, my great grandparents actually went on opening day, and they got a Jungle Cruise. They wore a suit and tie, and my great grandma wore a fancy dress, and they got like a tour book for the Jungle Cruise ride. Like it was like a promotional tour book they
Yeah.
gave. And back then you could even in 2001, 2002, you were getting passes to go, and it was so empty. My wife and I had an annual pass for 20 something years, and we would just go, and walk around during the day, and it was amazing. And then the last 3 or 4 years, no way. It's
Yeah.
inaccessible. It's so crowded, and then the parking situation is so locked down that it's $20 to park.
Yeah, and my wife, she had it down to a science to be like which days were the days to go. And she
Oh yeah.
and she was like the best day to go is like it's like a Tuesday after Martin Luther King Jr. Day and before spring break. Because
That's interesting.
everybody would have just gotten Martin Luther King Jr. Day off, and nobody's going on a trip because they're waiting for a few weeks to go during spring break. And so nobody was at the park, and so she was like, "That's the day to go when there's hardly."
That's funny. I remember October, before they used to gussy it up like for Halloween for
Mm-hmm.
Haunted Mansion, like the Jax thing.
Yeah.
It was always dead in October too, and it was awesome finding a dead day.
Yeah. Just like walking on rides and stuff.
I miss Disneyland.
Yeah.
I used to love to just go and we'd just walk the park. I mean, and then of course when you have kids, it's different. You do so much.
It's really special. I mean, it was special for us because when we had kids, when we had Claire and we would go, it was one of those things of like, it's not like it's like a thing we do because we're locals, not because we're on a vacation. We have to stay here the whole day.
Yes. Yeah.
Somebody asked me in the chat, where do I get my brushes? Well, most of these, like the only brush that I've been using for this one is just a little, a round hard edge brush, and that's it. I haven't used any kind of special brushes for this.
I love that X now. Like it looks like weaving.
Yeah, did you see that? Yeah, put the weaving on it.
Yeah, it's even way better. Look at the diamond.
Yeah, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 X's now.
It gives it a lot of depth. It's one of the greatest backs I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Just being objective, I couldn't have imagined it. This great.
It's coming.
You want to hear a great Disney story?
Hit me.
My friend Juan Luis Buñuel, who it's funny going back first full circle to Un Shan Andalou and the Death's Head Moth. Luis Buñuel was who Alfred Hitchcock called the greatest film director of all time, the Spanish filmmaker. Luis Buñuel was one of my favorite directors, and I would just watch all of his films, the Spanish surrealism. And his son Juan Luis ended up becoming one of my closest friends. Juan Luis passed away a few years ago, but I have Juan Luis's paintings are all over my house. But Juan Luis told me this story that Disneyland Paris contacted him and his brother Raphael, who lives in LA, and said, "Look, we're doing like kind of a Hollywood street in Disneyland Paris, and we want to know, we want to name a street Buñuel Way." After your father. So we want to negotiate the rights for you.
Wow.
Now, Juan Luis hates Disneyland. He hates Disney as a corporation. He just was he hated Disney, everything about it. And he hated the whole corporate complex. He was like, Spanish, French guy who lived in Paris, and he just was very anti-establishment. And so he said, okay, let's entertain this meeting to his brother. And they go in there and sit at the board with all these Disney executives. And they say, we love the history of your father's films. We want to name the street Buñuel Way. How much do we have to pay you to get the rights to the name and an image of your father?
Wow.
And he said, we're definitely interested in the deal. We've come up with a low price for you. They said, okay. He said, $7 million. They said, what? Are you kidding? And he said, that's right. We've come up with a low price for you, $7 million. And they said, and he's like, just like the corporate swine they were, they looked at me and they said, that sounds like a great deal. We're going to love to work on this with you. He said they, continued to kiss our butt for the next 30 minutes of the meeting and said, we're set to go. And then he said, a week later, we get a letter in the mail. Thank you so much for meeting with us. We're going to have to decline on the Buñuel.
Let's see if I can make these.
He said I did it just to watch them.
Yeah.
Just to watch them, their response, these corporate guys. Another funny Juan Luis Buñuel story was when he told me it was after 9/11. And remember, like travel, going on airplanes, of course, is difficult anytime. But remember after 9/11, like how horrible it was,
Mm-hmm.
to fly. And then he said, the next time I go on a, his dad was this famous surrealist, and he had this very surreal sense of humor. He said, the next time I go on a flight, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put uncooked spaghetti in my shoes,
Oh my gosh.
like uncooked spaghetti, and I'm gonna put my feet in there and walk on them. And then when I go to the checkpoint and they tell me to take off your
No.
shoes, I'm gonna remove my shoes and then put them in front of them. And they're gonna say, "Hold on, wait a minute, everybody, let's stop. What is this?" And I'm gonna say, "It's noodles." And they're gonna say, Why do you have it?" And I say, "Because I like walking on spaghetti." And then the whole airport shuts down and they have to think about it for a few hours.
Golly. We're getting pretty close. It's not going to be much longer.
It's I expected, like, because you were telling me about how on your live sometimes that you really struggle and you have to kind of battle through a thing, and I was kind of anticipating that. I thought that there was going to be like a lot more design problems and battles.
Well, I think, like you said, I mean, we mentioned this earlier. Just like we've talked about this more than once. I've already, in my head, subconsciously, I've already done this design once.
Well, you've done it physically once before
Right. That's what I'm saying. Uh,
and erased it.
and erased it or just didn't save it, which I've been saving. All the crew that's on the chat is like, hope he's saving, which I am. Um, you know, but it's also like just chit chatting with you, and that's another thing with these lives. Like, just chatting and talking helps me not completely focus on all the little nitpicky stuff. Sometimes I think, and it just helps me. It kind of goes into like that muscle memory aspect where I'm just designing and I'm not thinking about specifically, okay, this is a moth or this is the skull. I'm thinking of it more of it kind of like just the rudimentary shapes of what they are and if they're designed well. Does that even making sense?
Oh, absolutely. It's the atmosphere creates everything. I mean, I think that's kind of what, like, working in a corporation, they never understand is they never understand atmosphere.
Yeah.
You can get the weight room or the gym or the child daycare and stuff, but when you create an atmosphere, like when we used to have the old D&D office, in Hollywood, it was like coming today was like, Dave would be grinding coffee and he'd make coffee and we would just talk about a Tim Burton movie and we'd even go to LACMA to go to an art museum. And then we'd come back and design all this stuff because atmospherically you were stoked on life.
Yeah.
It's kind of like just relaxation. It's David Lynch, the film director.
Mm-hmm.
David Lynch always said, he said, when people come on my set, they're always astonished what a great time people are having, because the image of the artist as a suffering person is not the artist that creates great work.
I agree with
The
that.
artists that create the great work are ones that love what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that 100%.
Because I went to a talk he gave on transcendental meditation, and he was talking about being a relaxed, happy person will create greater art than being this sullen, dark, foreboding person, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I need to fix this. I just changed this a little bit over here.
What's going on with your coffee?
We ordered, I redesigned the coffee bags, and I'm really stoked because I'd probably say I'd say we're shooting for April, but we're going to really start hitting and promoting Kingswald coffee hard in April. And we're going to have our new sweet bags. Did I show you the new bags?
No.
Oh, you're going to like them.
How do you keep up with, like, the roasting though demand? I mean, how long does it take to roast beans?
I mean, about 12 minutes per batch. We don't make that much. But I hope to make a lot. I hope to buy an actual real big roaster.
Get a Diedrich infrared roaster.
I never heard of this. I'll have to look it up.
Oh, get a Diedrich. So the Diedrich family, I don't know if anybody out there is familiar with Diedrich coffee. They became like I don't know, like a mini Starbucks. You can go and buy Diedrich K-Cup capsules and stuff because Starbucks bought them out. But the Diedrich family were from, like, where I'm from, Costa Mesa, California area.
Mm-hmm.
And they just had one Diedrich coffee. They were like one of the original craft coffee places in like the 70s in California.
Hmm.
and they were roasting and stuff, and then they kind of grew, and then I think the dad sold the business to Starbucks after they became like a chain, and Starbucks just basically bought them for the real estate and shut them all down.
Wow.
But Martin Diedrich, the son, they were Germans from Guatemala who owned coffee farms for centuries.
Interesting.
And the Guatemalan government, during like the takeover, they kicked them off their own land and confiscated their acres.
Wow.
And so they moved to California, basically escaping the communist, kind of regime of Guatemala at the time.
Yeah.
And they opened this coffee shop in Costa Mesa, Diedrich. But then, after the Diedrichs are all sold out to that, Martin Diedrich opens his own coffee shop called Keen Coffee in Newport Beach. And he just would do small batch roasting. And his brother designed coffee roasters.
Hmm.
And his brother moved to, I think, Sandpoint, Idaho, and he makes like the greatest coffee roasters ever, Diedrich coffee roasters. They're done with infrared. And that family has been into coffee for so many generations that, I would look at Diedrich roasters if I were you.
Yeah, yeah. Here's our coffee bags right here. Let me see.
I love that line, the curvature coming in on
it's
that.
Coming together.
Hey, that looks good.
So it's got the kings on the side.
What's the difference between the blue and the red, or is that the back side?
This is the front over here, and then this is the back, and this is the bottom of the little gusset bag. And then this is just the design flat, and then this is right where the little zip shut thing will be.
That is so cool.
Yeah, but we're gonna start pushing it pretty hard, and we're gonna offer it as like an addition to people that people can get with their subscriptions.
But why not? I mean, Coffee and Cards. I mean, that was the name of our old podcast thing or whatever with D&D back before that stuff was even popular. Coffee and Cards. They've always gone together.
Yep.
And especially illustration. I mean, how many illustrators do you know that are freaking coffee junkies?
Absolutely.
You know what's funny though about video game coding people? Like, if you ever knew like video game artists or video game people, they really were into Mountain Dew.
Oh yeah.
Isn't that funny? It's like a whole culture.
Yeah, for sure.
There was one that was like a blue kind of like, there was a Code Red, I think.
Yes, Code Red.
And all these like computer engineering guys at UC Irvine, you would see, they were always had Code Red. And I would ask my wife, because she went to college there, I'd say, hey, what's up with those guys in Code Red? She'd be like, I don't know. And then I talked to one and they're like, oh yeah, we're all addicted to Code Red.
That's funny.
Coffee's a much better alternative, I believe.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You ever drink Big Red?
Yes, I used to love Big Red when I was a kid.
Do you like it, or does it make you sick?
It probably makes me sick now, the Red 5.
Yeah, it's a weird flavor, It's like cream soda, but it's red.
Yeah. I remember I'd go to the city pool when I grew up, and I'd get, I'd ride my bike all the way across town. Once again, one thing I wouldn't let my kids do now.
I know, isn't that funny?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would leave in the morning, and I wouldn't be back until like dinner time in the summer. And I would just ride my bike all over the place, all over town. And I'd ride my bike to the city pool. I'd ride my bike to the city pool. I'd stay there from like 1 when it opened until like 6 when it closed. And at like 12, they'd have like a lunch break. And I would get a Zero bar. Remember Zero candy bars?
I do. I don't remember ever having one though, but I remember.
Oh, they're awful. It's basically a Snickers bar without nuts and chocolate. It's just nougat covered in a chocolate shell. That's it.
You have to have nuts for me to like it.
Yeah. And I would get me a Zero bar and a Big Red.
Oh. Could you imagine doing that now?
Oh, I would be, I don't know. Yeah.
Isn't it funny though how age does that? Like when I used to work at Ken Crane's Laserdisc, it was like this famous giant Laserdisc store when I was in film school in Westminster, California.
Yeah.
And I used to walk across during our shift from pulling like Laserdisc orders.
Yeah.
To like this Cambodian-owned donut shop, and I would get like 3 chocolate old fashions and a large Coke.
Oh man.
A fountain Coke, and I would eat it in this ghetto-ass parking lot on Beach Boulevard. And go back and pull Laserdisc orders.
Oh.
And shrink wrap Laserdiscs. And like now, dude, if I ate 3 chocolate old fashions and a large Coke,
man,
I don't know. I would probably feel so sick.
Do you know? Have you ever heard of it's more in the South. A place called Brahms Ice
No,
Cream.
never.
There's this place called Brahms, and it's like a diner. It's a chain place, but it's a diner, and they just kind of sell American food. They sell burgers, French fries, stuff like that. But they have a bunch of ice cream. The place is called Brahms Ice Cream.
Like the German name, like a composer,
No idea.
like BRAHMS.
I don't know. I think it's BRAU. There's no H, I don't think. I can't
Oh,
remember
okay.
though. But I remember, like, especially when I was a kid, like when I played like baseball when I was a kid, like little league baseball,
I love baseball.
and the routine, the ritual is we'd play a baseball game, and then my parents would take me to Brahms Ice Cream, and they'd give me a banana split, like a full 3-scoop banana split.
That's great though.
Oh, and I loved it. We'd go get a banana split, and then like later in life, we're I can't remember. I'm with my wife, and this is like years later, and we pass a Brahms. Let's go to Brahms. I want to get a banana split. And I go in and I get a banana split, and like literally, I feel like I go into like this diabetic coma where it's just like I get this huge headache. It's just having so much sugar. I'm just like, how did I do this when I was a kid?
How many years ago was this when you revisited it?
At least a decade. I can't imagine doing it now because I felt bad then.
Isn't that funny? It's I do you give your kids soda?
Not much. No, we don't give our kids soda. Mm-mm.
I'm really like, when I was a kid, I could just have unlimited soda, and like I'm very like when my kids, like when we get a soda, I'll open like a bottle of Coke, and then like we each get like almost like a shot, like, and we split it up into cups, and then I'll have just that, and then it's like they think it's a huge treat,
Yeah.
and it's just it makes it better
Yes.
to keep that special because when I was a kid, I mean, it was unlimited. I really had no food supervision. I remember coming home from school
No.
and getting Dryer's ice cream,
Yeah.
kind
Totally.
of like Bluebell, but maybe the one from the West. Just kind of your average grocery store ice cream.
Yeah.
I would get a big tub of cookies and cream,
Oh yeah.
and sit down and watch the movie Beetlejuice, and I would
Heck
eat the whole
yes.
gallon of cookies and cream ice cream.
No, I can't remember. We caught like that big bucket ice cream. The ice cream that's in the grocery store that's like in the big clear gallon
Yeah,
clear
it's like
bucket.
Lucerne or some kind of dairy.
That's just like the cheapest one. We caught cheap
Yes.
chocolate. And we would just my mom she would make me cheap chocolate milkshakes. And she'd just get this cheap ice cream, vitamin D milk, mix it up, and to make it extra thick, she'd crack an egg in it.
Are you kidding?
Oh, it was the greatest milkshake
That's
ever.
probably cool though.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's great.
Does your mom still make them?
She totally making a cheap chocolate milkshake faster.
Your mom's still in Texas then?
Yeah, they're actually moving out here though.
Oh, they're gonna move to Cleveland?
They're gonna move this. They're gonna move this direction because my brother's in Birmingham, which is just south about an hour and a half, and they're gonna try to move kind of in between us.
Is that gonna be hard though, leaving all that history of Texas behind?
It's hard for my dad, I think.
But it's how did your brother end up in Birmingham?
Uh, my brother and I both worked for a Christian summer camp called Student Life, and he was a lighting director, and I was a video director. And we went to camp there when we were in high school and in junior high, and then when we got older, we worked there on staff, and that's where they were based out of when we worked there, and that's how I met my wife. Is she worked there as well.
Is Birmingham a cool city? I've actually never been
It's
to Alabama. It's one of the few
Yeah,
states.
Birmingham is nice. I like Birmingham. It's got a nice kind of small town, but still a little bit kind of developed feel to it. I like it.
Actually, uh, I photographed a wedding in Los Angeles area, California, or actually engagement photos so many years ago. This guy named Corbett Chandler.
Okay.
I still talk to Corbett. He's a marketing guy. I wonder if your brother knows him. He's a marketing guy in Birmingham, Alabama.
He might.
And he was born in Memphis, and then moved to Alabama when he was like a teen, and then went. What's that Roll Tide school?
Alabama.
Yeah, he was a big Roll Tide guy. He went there, and he's a great guy. I mean, we just, sometimes when you're hired to work for someone, we hit it off. The minute we met, we hit it off, and he moved back there and does marketing in Birmingham. And I always look at his Instagram, at Corbett's Instagram, and it just looks like such a beautiful place.
Yeah, it's nice. My brother, he's always tried to get me to move there, but I just haven't done it.
Yeah, it's funny. All I know about Alabama is that two of my favorite athletes of all time came from Auburn, which would be Charles Barkley, my favorite athlete of all time,
and Bo Jackson. Yes.
And talking about like you wouldn't let your kids go out. I remember Bo Jackson recently. He said, "Do you know why I became an athlete? Was because my mom had like 9 kids, and when it was summer, she would say, 'All right, kids, outside,' and then just shut the door and say, 'See you at nighttime.'"
Yep.
And he said we would like challenge each other, like, "Can you jump over that ditch? Can you jump over the trash can?"
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting thing.
Yep.
The freedom. Some people would call it negligence.
Yeah. It's funny. I was I kind of have a love-hate relationship with sports.
Sure.
I mean, I played football when I was a kid. I loved football, lived and breathed football. But my dad was a football coach, and I had like 9 uncles that were football coach, and literally I got, just sports beat out of me, and I just was done with it when I was.
That's understandable, though.
And, I don't watch sports now, that kind of thing. And I was, speaking of Auburn, I was like I think I was in it was either the Atlanta or Birmingham airport, and there was this older couple that was these huge Alabama fans, and they had the sweatsuits and the wind jacket, just a whole get up matching.
For Auburn or Roll Tide?
For the Roll Tide, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. And they were saying Roll Tide, and I was behind them in the line, and I was just being a troll, and I was like, what is Roll Tide? And they turned around, and you thought that I had like,
oh my God,
you thought I'd like insulted their mother's honor or something.
That is the funniest comedy stance of all time.
And they were like, "It's Crimson Tide," and I was like, "What's Crimson Tide? I thought you said Roll Tide."
Crimson Tide was a movie with like Harrison Ford.
I know. That's what I was like. Wasn't that a Harrison Ford?
And then what happened?
Just the whole way in the gangway going down to the into the plane, they just kept like cutting their heads back at me, just glaring at me.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And I was like, if anything happens today has been a success.
Absolutely. Because what's Roll Tide?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what's funny is my Roll Tide memory is like Santa Ana, California, where like I had lived for the longest period of time, like of any city. And there was a place called El Gallo Giro. It was this little kind of divey Mexican chain.
Mm-hmm.
And it was across from this high school called Modern Day, which is like the super high end, one of the most expensive private schools in the U.S., but it's like deep in the hood.
Right.
Like I think the area wasn't that bad in like the 30s or whenever they built this, but it's the city's growing up around it. But I used to always go to this divey place, El Gallo Giro, and one night I was in El Gallo Giro late. I was in there at like 1 a.m. and I never had seen white people besides me in this place. And there was this group of like 20 white people in front of me, and they're like, "Hey, we'll get that polo bowl." Like pollo,
yeah.
Chicken bowl. But they said, "We'll get the polo bowl." And I said, "What the hell did that guy just say?" To my friend. And I said to the guy, "Did you just say polo bowl?" And he said, "Yeah, the polo one up there." And I said, "Where are you from?" And he said, "Roll Tide. We're in town for the big game." I guess it was some football game. And I was just staring at these guys like in this Mexican place. Like, this is surreal for me, listening to them order the Spanish food.
Yeah, I guess my thing, as always, these are all my own experiences and opinions. But like my thing with sports, like our kids don't play sports. It's not because, it's probably a lot of it because of my own kind of feelings towards sport. But like, especially in the United States and Western culture, there's so much like importance put on
Yeah,
sports
it's true.
that you have this whole generation of kids that all they think about is sports when they're when they're in elementary school and in high school and that kind of thing. And I remember me going to school, my entire school career, junior high and high school, I took art classes and stuff like that. I'm just going back because I like this other way. I did this better. Um, I look back when I was in school, the amount of time that I spent, practicing extra time in the summer, extra time in the fall for like 2 days like during the fall where you'd practice 2 times a day before school started in September or August, in the summer and that kind of thing. And just like the early mornings before school, the late afternoons after school, like I just look back on that and think to myself, if I would have spent all that time directed towards something like my art, this something that is what I really love to do and what I really wanted to do, you know, just where I could be now as compared to where I am now, just the progress that I could have made. And just thinking about that with my kids, just like, that's really the reason why we don't do sports is so the kids, if they want to do sports, well, they'll play sports, but we let them do what they want to do.
See, I think that looks like almost like a moth, like a butterfly. It's amazing that shape again. But what you're saying though is I think the opposite way. I think that you wouldn't be where you are if you hadn't have played sports and realized how much you disliked it.
True. I agree with that, but it's kind of one of those things of you don't appreciate until after the fact.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't until I started doing it later in life that I realized how important it was to me. But I think it's more of just from the get-go, you're just programmed, especially in Texas with Texas football and stuff like that.
I agree with that with Texas football.
You're just programmed. Oh, you got to play sports, and if you don't play sports, you're not a cool kid, and you're not, nobody's gonna, all this other stuff. Your parents aren't gonna be happy, and I was the artsy fartsy kid and that kind of thing.
That's like I hear from a lot of people who grew up in the South, like William Eggleston, one of my favorite photographers who's from Memphis. He's about 82 now. I remember reading an article with him, and he talked about growing up in Memphis and being only into photography and the arts, and he liked to play piano. And he said if you grew up in the South and you didn't hunt and play football, you were really shunned.
Yeah, totally.
And that was, so weird for me growing up in California, which was, that was not the case at all.
Right. Right.
We did have a sports culture. Trust me. USC and UCLA were
oh yeah, for sure.
teams. It's a huge deal, especially there. But it's not the same as the South. Trust me.
Yeah.
It's I was never a fanatic sports guy except for like with baseball. Baseball, and I played baseball up until junior college, and I was very good at baseball. Trust me, I'm not tooting my own horn 20 years after the fact.
Yeah.
But the deal with sports is why I gravitated towards skateboarding more, is because to be great at sports, you have to respect authority. You have to understand the dynamics between a coach.
Yeah.
And I have a massive problem with authority growing up without a father. So when I became older, I became uncoachable.
Right.
And it became like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm absolutely not. I'm going to go skateboard now, and I'm going to be my own boss on the curb. And like now that I'm older and my kids play softball and they're really good, I think like even though they're really young, I'm not saying they're the next Bo Jackson, but I sit and think like it just shows you the dynamic of family. Like if I would have had a father who was really into me as like a baseball player, I absolutely could have pitched.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I would have been Clayton Kershaw, but I absolutely could have went the way. But it's all about all these dynamics shape us who we are.
Yep.
Like if you didn't have, Rod Serling, the Twilight Zone creator, right?
Yeah.
Rod Serling was like 5'3", and he hated being short. And he didn't like that people would see him in person and then be like, "Oh, I thought you were so tall," from like the Twilight Zone opening.
Right.
And when people used to come to his door, he used to open the door and then go stand on the bottom of the stairs to be taller. And he had this quote where he said to someone, "Could you imagine if I would have been 6'5", like what I would have done? I would have conquered the world."
Yeah.
And I always think, no, Rod, it would have been the opposite. You probably wouldn't have done anything because the angst,
Yeah.
is what made you the greatest TV writer in history.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like our shortcomings are what make us what we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the curve, the composition. It reminds me of one of my favorite decks of all time. The curves is not the composition at all, but just the concept that it's kind of borderless, like a fluid border. Like the V3 Smoke and Mirrors was the first time I ever saw a deck that didn't have that confined border. You know what I mean?
So you want me to leave it off because I was about to draw it?
No, I love. No, I just love. No, I'm not talking about the outside border. I'm just saying like this curvature. I don't know if you
Oh, I
can
got
see
you.
it yet.
I got you.
But the curve, like the hourglass curvature, is just so beautiful. It's almost obscene. Really, how it comes out of this. I mean, I have to rewatch this and just see something from nothing. It's cool. Like when you look at the triangular background, it almost looks like a ritual, right?
Yeah.
Like a seance.
Yeah. I like that.
See, that's a classic Jackson dingbat. Is this one above in the middle? This
Yes.
kind of Greek foiling.
This thing right here.
Yeah, I mean that's a classic.
I need to shrink it just a little bit so it's not so close to this.
This is unbelievable.
We're almost finished. I'm about to put the finishing touches. It's going to go 100 miles at the very, very end.
It's kind of like when you're in the plane and you're on a trip and it's taking forever and you're like, is this ever going to land? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, descending.
It's about to land.
It's unbelievable.
Let me see here. Make sure I got everything together. Now
how did you do it?
I'm gonna make sure everything's symmetrical right now. I'm gonna delete.
Do you like one-way backs?
I do. This is gonna be a one-way back right there. Well, it's not really. This is not a one-way back. This will be a two-way back. Let's see here.
Funny. It's like Dan Buck and I were speaking recently about the history of one-way and two-way, and Dan said, the one-way was the classic playing card. The two-way came out of Magic.
Yeah.
A necessity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to think about. Like one-way backs make me feel disorganized in a way. Like when you shuffle the deck and I want to put them all in order.
Yeah.
But another part of me loves it and understands that like that's a freer composition. But I love a two-way back. I really do. What percentage of your decks have been one-way versus two-way?
I'd probably say 50%. No.
Oh, really?
Probably 75% were two ways.
That's what I would think.
Yeah.
God, it's a thing of beauty.
See here.
I hope everyone loves this as much as I do.
1 second. I'm gonna just get it all. We're gonna get it all nice and buttoned up here.
Just unbelievable.
And I'm gonna make it look old, like it was, like Doherty engraved it himself.
Look at how cool that outline looks. You're so smart doing these like this early too, because anybody with kids knows.
Oh yeah, I mean it's 8:20, and I'm gonna have done a whole day's worth of work, and I'm gonna go upstairs and have coffee, and the rest of the day I can be happy in a good mood.
No, hey, don't lie to the people there. You didn't do a whole day's worth of work. You did a whole year's worth of work for some people. This is unbelievable. It takes a long time to do this stuff for humans.
For humans.
Where you came from, you're a little different.
All right, let me see here. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the background, make it white. I'm just going to make this black for right now because I'm going to do a few things to it.
Here, let me tell you something I said to my wife yesterday that oh, look at how good that looks.
It's pretty cool too.
I know. That's V2. Is someone made a comment to me yesterday like, are you sure? Is it really at like 4 a.m. or whatever it is? Like that's why so early? And that's way too early for me, bro. I won't be tuning in. And I said to my wife, hey, look, when I was in film school, if you would have told me that at 2 a.m., David Lynch was going to show you how he directed Blue Velvet,
You'd
You know what
watch
I
it.
mean? I would be like, okay, I'll stay up for 48 hours to see that.
Yeah.
You know, I need to see that. No, I don't want to watch a recording. I want to see it, like when it happens.
Mm.
I want to see it. So I'm thinking like, okay, you're gonna get to see Jackson draw a freaking 10-year anniversary of a deck, and it's too early for you. I mean, what else is going on in life, man? It's amazing.
Take this, make it black.
Do you like that Adobe went to a subscription model?
I honestly I don't. I mean, I remember when it went, but I don't really think twice of it. Yes, I do now that I think about it. It's way cheaper.
Is it?
I think it is.
I don't remember. I don't remember. I think that like it used to cost like $650 maybe
Yeah.
to buy a version, right?
Well, I remember like Photoshop was like 1,300 or whatever.
You want to hear? You want to hear a funny story? Is when Dan Phillips and I were working at the Apple Store one day. Remember they used to come in a box called like the Creative Suite.
Mm-hmm. The huge boxes.
It was like $1,200 or something. This was like 2004, and there's like this kind of nerdy looking white dude walking around in the store, and he's just like looking around, and then Dan Phillips and I are standing there just BSing in the middle of the store. Apple stores back then, believe it or not, no one was in them, and this nerdy guy's like looking around. And Dan's like, hey, this guy gives me the creeps, dude. Like, what's he doing? And then all of a sudden, he grabs the Creative Suite and runs out the front door of the mall. And so Dan's like, oh, no, you don't. And he starts running after this guy. And I'm like, Dan's crazy. What's he doing? And so an hour later, Dan Phillips comes back and he has his shirt off and he's sweating. He has the Creative Suite in his hand. And the store manager, Karen, comes out and she's like, Dan, where were you? What happened? And he's like, I saw that guy steal Karen, and that's wrong. I went and got it back. And she's like, Dan, what happened? And he's like, I chased him all the way down to Bear Street. Or no, I chased him all the way down to Fairview. And right toward when I was catching up on him, he threw the box in the bushes. And just gave up. So I got it back for you. And she's like, Dan, you can never do that. It's a liability. Just let them walk out. But thank you so much. That's on me. I can't believe you saved that for us. And it was so out of character. Like Dan Phillips is the most laid back dude. Like you could pull on his ear and he wouldn't even budge. And there you go. You get the right guy on the wrong day.
Yeah. All right, let's put these blinds. Let's put those blinds in there.
Oh, yes.
I got a brush. This is the only time I'm going to use a special brush, but a special brush that I make just for these things.
This is called the Noir Office Brush.
The Noir Office Blind Brush.
This is the Returning American Vet Brush.
Wait. Where'd it go? Crap. I gotta get the right one here.
How many cups of coffee are you going to drink when you go upstairs?
A couple. I've already had 2. Okay, that's the one I want right there. Okay. Now let's make a new layer.
Oh my goodness.
Now I'm going to do I'm going to outline the flower and stuff, give everything a little bit of a border to make everything pop off. It'll be good.
Holy moly. Does your wife look at all of your cards?
No. Yes. Yeah, I mean, because I'm always showing them to her. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this?
You know, it's funny. I used to talk to Alfred Hitchcock's daughter a lot, Pat Hitchcock. She used to kind of sponsor our class at film school. And she was greatest, coolest. Like, she's still alive. She's like 95. She lives in Solvang, California. She's great. Pat is amazing lady. But I remember she told us as a group, she told us that her mother should have been credited with co-directing every one of the films.
Oh yeah.
And we said, well, what do you mean? And she said, because the studio couldn't tell Hitchcock anything, but he would show the first screening to his wife, who used to be a film editor, and she'd be like, what are you thinking? Cut that out. Cut that. Are you out of your mind? And she would just say, yes, dear. And, she said a lot of the great moments in Hitchcock cinema were actually, her mother's idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how, even though my wife, has no interest in playing cards other than that's our business and stuff, but just how well her eye has been trained, indirectly with what works and what doesn't work in playing cards.
Look at you and say, what are you thinking?
Yeah, she's like, well, it's more of just like, if she doesn't go, man, that's awesome, I know that I got to go back and rework it.
I know that feeling. I know that feeling from my wife. Like, hey, what do you think? And if it's not immediately like, yeah, I love it, I have a bad feeling.
Yeah, then it's there's something still that I can kind of tweak a little bit, or the idea, the concept is not quite there yet, and it's been right every time.
It really is. I mean, I think women are, especially like wives, if you're really paying attention, are right more than they're not.
Yeah, don't tell my wife that. I hope she's not watching.
Yeah, I hope my wife doesn't watch this. I don't want to blow it up, but it's absolutely true. It's like I was a graffiti artist in the 90s in San Diego County, and one of my mentor, Tom would I would do like a throw up, like a fill in or like a piece, on the side of the freeway, and I would just think it was the greatest thing. And I had this big head, and I would say, that just blew everyone out of the water. That's just unbelievable. And he would just say, it's okay. It's okay. And I would always just be like, what? I would feel like so bummed out. He'd be like, it's okay. It's okay.
What?
And then all the time, I would just keep wanting to impress and just do more and more. And then he'd be like, yeah, it's better. It's okay.
It'll do.
And I would just be like, oh, I want to kill him. And one time we just almost threw down. Like, I was just so tired of it. And then one of my other friends, he said, yeah, Tom always told me, yeah, don't tell Brad it's great, man. His head's already big enough. We gotta pump it down.
I don't know if I'm gonna do this.
That's good though. Once I heard that, I was okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna do this or not. I'm just gonna try some things here.
Let's see it.
I'm gonna try to push this skull back just a little bit.
It is so crazy. It's subtle, the thin brush. Isn't that the great thing though about drawing a card back, is that you don't have to actually do it? Like, the whole thing, it does just mirror itself.
Yeah, and that's a relatively new thing in Photoshop. The symmetry thing.
When did that come out?
I want to say a couple of years ago, but
I wonder why they wouldn't have always had that.
I think the only reason why they did it is because that iPad program, what is it called, Sketch Pro or something? I don't know what it is.
Yes.
It has that kind of effect, and I think they were just like, oh, we got to get this in our own stuff.
My friend designs shoes in that app on an iPad.
Huh.
That's like, he lives in that. I mean, he uses Illustrator for like technical stuff, but it's called, something Pro.
I think SketchUp. I think no, that's the 3D. That's a 3D thing.
It's not SketchUp. It's I forget, something Pro for the iPad. And I'm like, really? You designed? He designs New Balance shoes. Samuel Pierce, amazing designer. And he's just like, yeah. He's like, I would just draw it all on paper if I could, but you have to use these programs.
Let me save this right quick. Let's just do some. I
gotta sit back and look at that.
Let's do some conceptual stuff here. Just see how it looks.
It is so mind-bending that it almost deserves to be a 5x7 card.
Well, good thing I made it huge so we can print it big.
I mean, it's unreal.
Let me see here. We're gonna put it on a card and see how it looks.
I want like an uncut sheet, but just of the whole back.
Yes.
You have that great printer too.
I can make you one of those, bro. I can make it big, like a 24x36 of this if you want.
It's unbelievable.
Let me see here.
what a gift to the world you are. I'm serious.
I appreciate that. That's nice.
So some people are afraid to give compliments, especially like men. That are like I'm giving you the example of the graffiti days, but I've never understood that. I've always thought like, well, you should tell people how much you appreciate their work and just be sincere about it.
Yeah.
Some people are like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to seem less by giving him the praise. It never works.
Yeah, I got you.
Remember, like when you were in high school, like like the girls always liked this guy that was super confident and was never the guy saying like, oh, that guy's ugly, you don't want to date him, do you? It was always the guy like, yeah, go talk to everyone, you'll come back to me, babe. You never Tommy Lee?
Yes.
Kind of Motley Crue.
Yeah.
Like Tommy Lee, I remember someone was telling a story about Tommy Lee, and they were saying that when they were growing up with Tommy Lee, and they would go to his house, and his mom was like a supermodel, like a homecoming queen.
Okay.
She was like the most beautiful woman of all time. And then they said that like all of them would go over to parties at Tommy Lee's house, and they all had a super crush on his mom. And they would just go to his house to see his mom. And that one of the guys was looking at his mom, and then Tommy Lee, they said his dad was like a macho, awesome dude. And he went over to the guy and he's like, hey, go ask her out. He's like, what?
What?
Your wife. He's like, I see you checking her out. I know you want her. I know she's hot. Go ask her out. And he's like, what?
What?
Like, there's no way she's going to go with you. I mean, she has me, but go ahead. Go talk to her. Go see how it works out for you. And they were like, oh, now we know why she was with him. He was just like the awesomest guy of all time.
Yeah.
Like, she's not going to leave me for you. Go try it. Look at how color changes backs, right? I always talk about this.
That's pretty cool looking. Let's go back. Let's duplicate this a couple of times. Do some different colors. Get out of here. Close.
Look at the way that kind of burgundy looks.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine like with gold?
Yeah.
Like a gold gilding?
Ooh, yeah. That'd be sweet. I mean, you could even like imagine this. I don't even know what it looked like, but like make it a dual colored card like this. And underneath it, do like a sepia or like a metallic gold Pantone. I think it's Pantone 827. That may be silver. But like take this gold. I'll just make a faux gold, but imagine it being like metallic ink, or you could do foil, but whatever. Look at that.
It's like a USC deck.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I love that color scheme.
Sell it over to my alma mater, and they'll tell me to get lost.
And you could do this one as like a silver and blue.
Yeah, silver and blue are always like it's like, well, go sell it to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
We'll go back to your Frisco. No, that looks beautiful, really.
Let me do the reverse out.
It's crazy. Oh my goodness. That's striking.
Bro, look at the owl's eyes in the reverse out. Look at the difference in the owl eyes.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
I know. It's like color changes everything. It's like photography. I mean, you look at like Ansel Adams, and then you colorize it, and it just loses something. You know, like that's how much a color can change something.
Yeah, let's try something else. Let's just, why not? We're on a computer. We can do whatever we want. Let's take this one. I just want to see what it looks like.
What do you think Dougherty would say if he could see the technology today versus what he did?
He'd get really good at it.
You think so?
Yeah, because he would like, that's tool. I'm gonna destroy. I'm gonna slay heads with this. That's what I think.
What was he using? What kind of medium would Dougherty have been using?
He most likely, I mean, all that stuff was done on printing plates, so he would have originally started on like a piece of paper that transferred to like a real thin like vellum or wax paper, and then the way that they would do it was either like a transfer style paper with like charcoal onto the plate, or they would
Grave rubbing.
kind of, yeah, or they would put beeswax on the plate and they would draw into the beeswax.
Wow. Oh my goodness. You should keep it like that, and we can call it the bipolar. Yeah.
I like the see how this line pops out.
Look at how cool that kind of looks, like that two tone.
Yeah, because this border breaks, it almost gives it like a whirlpool feel, like you want to spin it.
It's so crazy. You know, it's funny. Like, I mean, I'm not like a huge blue fan. I mean, I like denim, I like indigo and stuff, but that blue just looks so good. And especially like if you can imagine a silver or like a matte silver.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, or, you know, even like an aged paper.
Yep.
You know, like an aged finish, like a yellowed paper.
Yeah, let's find some. I got plenty of paper.
Like you know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
you have.
I know what you're talking about, bro. Let me just open up. Let me open up one of my Lord of the Rings cards. I already got it set up.
Like imagine a chain smoker had a deck in his house for 50 years.
Yes. Yes.
How many times have you seen the movie Lord of the Rings?
A lot, but I'm not. The thing about it is that I was a big fan before the movies came out. So, what I watched over and over and over with the behind the scenes stuff, because that's what I loved the creation process and the creative process that they went through.
Did Jackson live on a couch?
Exactly. No, when I was watching, I would do stuff like sculpture and that kind of thing. Let's see here. Why is this?
My wife is a huge Lord of the Rings fan. She loves the books. Just loves the books.
All right, let me see here.
What's some other book series she would read? I think it's called Tiger's Curse or something, or
I haven't heard that one.
what? Something Tiger something. It's kind of in that same vein of, you know, Tolkien. Not at the same level, obviously, but maybe a newer kind of fantasy book.
Right.
I love Wizard of Oz, though. I love your deck for it, but I love the book Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, that was a really fun deck.
See, look how cool that looks.
Yeah, it does look cool. Just get in the middle here.
You know, texture is everything.
Yeah.
It's funny, you can look at that color of the aged paper and you know it's not gloss.
Yes.
You know, by looking at you can feel texture looking at things.
And watch this. I'll do like a brown color. And then I'll put on a multiply. Not that way. This way. And then look at that. And I can do like a...
It's very unique. See, it's something you would never think of, too.
Yeah.
Like a deck like that. And then, like, if you look at historical playing cards, they would have absolutely printed one like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like brown.
Oh, yeah.
It's so beautiful.
You know, it would look good on this paper. It would be like a blood red, like if it's dried blood.
With one of your swords that's in the background of your
Heck yeah. Why not, bro? Ship it.
You know what's funny is my friend growing. See, that's beautiful.
Looks so good.
Look how much better that aged paper looks with red.
Oh yeah.
My friend Glenn Tamura, the Japanese American guy, he had these samurai swords at his house, and he used to use them for home defense. And then he used to smoke a lot of weed. And one night he was out of his mind, and he heard this noise, and he thought someone was breaking in, and he swung the sword, and he was so high that he missed, and it was his mom.
Oh no.
It was his mom, like going through the back gate. Like,
that's awful.
And he always told me, man, if I can't believe how stupid I am. Like, I had to get the swords out of the house, and I always just, it gives, just gives you the creeps, like thinking of someone swinging a sword for home defense at anyone opening a gate. Don't do drugs, kids.
Don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. Man, this turned out really good, dude.
It's I mean, it's unbelievable. I can't say it enough. I don't know what I would change. If you gave me like I don't know.
I think we'll sit on it a couple of days and see if anything pops out, because I'll look at it a couple of times and I'll send you some pics and we'll just sit on it for a couple of days. I do like that. We should do a version. Maybe this will be my version that I make.
Why don't we make 50 versions of it?
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, why not? I mean, what's stopping us? I mean, just look at this stuff.
Man, I love how the shape of the eyes mimic the shape of the owl's head, and then you got the beak and the nose.
It's very confusing in a good way. I mean, like, I'm someone who's worked on this with you the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
You look at it and you're like, it's confusing. In a good way that it keeps your eye completely interested.
Yeah, let's get the.
And I understand what you mean about sleeping on it, because sometimes you have design euphoria.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know. I'm pretty quick to jump.
Where's the original? Let me just open that up.
Do you remember Henry Ford's quote about asking your customers what they want?
What is it?
Where Henry Ford said, Steve Jobs used to always repeat this. Henry Ford said, if I would have asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse.
Yeah.
When they asked, do you ask for customer feedback? He said they would have asked for a faster horse. So no, your customers don't know what they want.
Yeah.
It's like, we don't know what we want until it's presented to us. Like, I couldn't have imagined this. You know what tuck case of yours I like is that Gary Pops.
Gary Don Pops?
Yeah, I love that tuck. Like the red with the...
Mm-hmm. That was a fun deck to work on.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, look at them.
Yeah, that turned out really...
I would like to go back in time and talk to Dougherty and then show him my ideas for now and see if he would say, kid, you're out of your mind, or why didn't I think of that?
Yeah. Just take that black off so it's not distracting.
See, I like your weaving here on the X.
Oh yeah.
A lot more.
Yeah, this was a little bit different. They did a little different approach to it.
Yeah, it's funny how just those couple lines completely change your eye. Your focal point.
Mm-hmm.
And how it moves.
And we kind of have this.
What's that?
I was just saying we kind of have this in the tail right here of the abdomen. They kind of have that hourglass shape that we kind of mimic right here in these shapes here.
It's just so much to look at. I love the triangular pattern on the.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like a subliminal. I mean, it's an unplanned subliminal hint to the original clip joint.
Yeah. Yep.
And then also, if you look at it, it's crazy. You don't even notice that that's making the triangle
mm-hmm.
going through the owl head. I mean, I never noticed that until right now.
Yeah.
The triangle on the owl's head is making the angular background.
Yep. That's cool.
You can totally lose it. It's a weird effect. See, that's beautiful.
Let's do your favorite. Let's do some purple. Let's go purple. Look at dark.
We're gonna do a Kobe Bryant tribute here. Jimi Hendrix edition. Hey, that's a cool color. That's a weird color. That's a trip.
That's interesting.
It looks like a witch, like a tarot kind of deck.
Yeah.
Like color. I don't know why. I just get that feeling. See, is that gold, like metallic gold?
No, it's just the paper texture through the purple.
But oh wow, it looks metallic gold, right?
Well, no, I mean it's just giving you that impression.
That's a trip.
But it's not. It's just like paper.
It's amazing. I love these little like arrowhead kind of deals.
Yeah, these things are here.
No, on the edge, the middle, the center, yeah, down.
These things,
yeah, right there.
Yeah, yeah.
When I watch you do that, like I wasn't expecting these cuts to come in, and it made it. It's like an arrowhead.
I like that.
Oh. I still love the black and the white. You know, of course, will always be my my favorite, but I just love them all. I just want 40 colors. Is that a problem?
No, it's not a problem.
Do you know how to use a color picker tool, Jackson?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. You know what's funny is you could do. Do you remember a Christian rock band from the 80s called Stryper?
Heck yeah, Stryper. To hell with the devil. To hell with
Michael Sweet.
Yep, Michael Sweet.
I used to have the LP, the vinyl LP, and I remember everything like the gimmick, you know, was black and yellow.
Yeah, the stripes. Yep.
We could do a Stryper edition.
To hell with the devil.
What happened to them? I mean, I haven't even thought of them since the 80s.
I think they still are. They still kind of are. I don't know. I have a buddy that's kind of a B-list movie star that loves Stryper, and he collects guitar picks. And anytime he's got like pictures of him and with Stryper and like 50 different occasions.
You know, that's crazy, dude. They had a rad logo though. I love their logo.
Yeah.
The Stryper.
It has such a great riff to it.
I know, Stryper. It just sounds like almost militaristic.
Yeah.
Like a secret operation.
Yeah.
Operation Stryper. The hell with the devil. I mean, it's an interesting title.
Yes. I'm trying to remember the words. I can't remember. I love that. I play that now. I'm going to play it after we get done.
You know what's funny, dude, is I think they had a couple albums. I mean, I can still see the covers. I had their vinyl.
Okay. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Let me see if I can stop screen sharing so I can, toward to the end,
This is always, for everyone, you know, watching, this is the most difficult part of Jackson's day is how to get rid of screen sharing.
Yes, it is.
Everything else.
I can never remember how to do it.
It's confusing. Stuff like that always confuses me too. Like, how do you know, it's always a simple function.
Uh-oh. What's happening? Let's see. Is it just me now?
I see the Zoom. Can you hear me on Zoom?
I got you. All right,
Okay.
I think it's going to be me. Let me turn the light on so I can see myself. Whoa, super bright. It'll catch up. I'm just watching the monitor. I think. Yeah, we're doing it. It's fine. I just always forget how far behind, how delayed the live is, and I always have the live up on my screen.
Oh, it's delayed?
Yeah, it's like delayed 15, 20 seconds. That way it can.
Remember yesterday during the test, it was like it was crazy. Like I was watching myself laugh from like 40 seconds earlier.
Mm-hmm. Let me pull you in here too. Let me see. Because I don't want to just look at my own face. That's no fun. Zoom. Okay, I want to add a window capture. Add existing. Boom. Wait. It doesn't like me doing this. There you are. So, well, I think that was very, very successful.
It's almost cathartic and exhilarating at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's also like after talking about something for so long to actually do it, it's like all your fears disappear and you're just left with elation.
Yeah, I'm just caressing your head like your little pet cat, just calming you.
Oh, there I am.
There's a little Bradley.
Funny, the whole time we're talking, I'm staring at that picture of you.
Oh, the one with my hair,
Yeah,
my COVID hair.
That's what I talk to when I'm talking.
That's funny. Well, hey man, this has been good. See, now I get to go up and have some coffee and feel like I've won the day.
Well, I've won the week.
So we'll have another one of these within the next couple of weeks as we kind of circle back, and I hope that everybody that's been watching. I got 20 people watching right now. That's a lot.
Tunes in more. I mean, I hope everyone sees this. I mean, I can't wait to do the ad cards.
Oh yeah, they're gonna be fun. In the Ace of Spades with the moth and the skull and the owl.
Wait till they see the tax stamp. I think that's gonna be the icing on the cake.
Mm-hmm. They have no idea how incredible the tax stamp is gonna be. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I always enjoy talking to Bradley. Good stories, that kind of thing. But also I like talking about playing cards too, so that's always a benefit. Yeah, so that's about it. Thanks, Brad.
It's been the time of my life, Jackson.
maybe when you get out of the Arctic tundra in Austin, we can maybe finally hook up if I ever come back.
Or I'll just go to you.
That sounds good to me. All right, man. Well, have a great day. I'll see you later. I'll send you all the images of this and stuff like that, and so you can take a look at on your own time.
Well, my time is your time.
And thanks everybody for joining us. It was a good one. So what is it? We're coming at 4 hours, so that was a good session.
And I got number 42, Jackie Robinson's number.
Nice.
My favorite ball player. So yes. It's a good day.
Yes, it is a good day. All right, man. Have a great day.
Take care, Jackson.
Right.
You're the greatest.
See you, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Take care.